Welcome to Echoverse Audiobook, where powerful books find their voice. In this series, we're diving into why small habits make a big difference. It is so easy to overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis. Too often, we convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action. Whether it is losing weight, building a business, writing a book, winning a championship, or achieving any other goal, we put pressure on ourselves to make some earth-shattering improvement that everyone will talk about. Meanwhile, improving by 1% isn't particularly notable. Sometimes it isn't even noticeable, but it can be far more meaningful, especially in the long run. The difference a tiny improvement can make over time is astounding. Here's how the math works out. If you can get 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day for 1 year, you'll decline nearly down to zero. What starts as a small win or a minor setback accumulates into something much more. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. The same way that money multiplies through compound interest, the effects of your habits multiply as you repeat them. They seem to make little difference on any given day, and yet the impact they deliver over the months and years can be enormous. It is only when looking back 2, 5, or perhaps 10 years later that the value of good habits and the cost of bad ones becomes strikingly apparent. This can be a difficult concept to appreciate in daily life. We often dismiss small changes because they don't seem to matter very much in the moment. Unfortunately, the slow pace of transformation also makes it easy to let a bad habit slide. If you eat an unhealthy meal today, the scale doesn't move much. But if you work late tonight and ignore your family, they will forgive you. If you procrastinate and put your project off until tomorrow, there will usually be time to finish it. Single decision is easy to dismiss later. But when we repeat 1% errors day after day, by replicating poor decisions, duplicating tiny mistakes, and rationalizing little excuses, our small choices compound into toxic results. It's the accumulation of many missteps, The impact created by a change in your habits is similar to the effect of shifting the route of an airplane by just a few degrees. Imagine you are flying from Los Angeles to New York City. If a pilot leaving time magnifies the margin between success and what progress is really like. Imagine an ice cube sitting on the table in front of you. The room is cold and you can see your breath. It is currently 25 degrees. Ever so slowly, the room begins to heat up. 26 degrees. 27.28. The ice cube is still sitting on you. 29 degrees. 30.31. Still, nothing has happened at the table in front of then, 32 degrees. The ice begins to melt. On a degree shift, seemingly no different from the temperature increases before it, has unlocked a huge change. Breakthrough moments are often the result of many previous actions, which build up the potential required to unleash a major change. This pattern shows you everywhere. Cancer spends 80% of its life undetectable, then takes over the body in months. Bamboo can barely. This is one of the core reasons why it is so. Break through this plateau, what I latent potential call the plateau of. If you find yourself struggling to build a good habit or break a bad one, it is not because you have lost your ability to improve. It is often because you have not yet crossed the plateau of latent potential. About not achieving success despite working hard is like complaining about an ice cube not melting when you heated it from 25 to 31 degrees. Your work was not wasted. It is just being stored. All the action happens at 32 degrees. When you finally break through the plateau of latent potential, people will call it an overnight success. The outside world only sees the most dramatic event rather than all that preceded it. But you know that it's the work you did long ago, when it seemed that you weren't making any progress, that makes the jump today possible. It is the human equivalent of geological pressure. Two tectonic plates can grind against one another for millions of years, the tension slowly building all the while. Then, one day, they rub each other once again, in the same fashion they have for ages, but this time the tension is too great. An earthquake erupts. Change can take years, before it happens all at once. Mastery requires patience. The San Antonio Spurs, one of the most successful teams in NBA history, have a quote from social reformer Jacob Riis hanging in their locker room. When nothing seems to help, I go and look at a stonecutter hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. Yet at the 101st blow it will split in two, and I know it was not that last blow that did it, but all that had gone before. All big things come from small beginnings. The seed of every habit is a single, tiny decision. But as that decision is repeated, a habit sprouts and grows stronger. Roots entrench themselves and branches grow. The task of breaking a bad habit is like uprooting a powerful oak within us. And the task of building a good habit is like cultivating a delicate flower one day at a time. But what determines whether we stick with a habit long enough to survive the plateau of latent potential and break through to the other side? What is it that causes some people to slide into unwanted habits and enables others to enjoy the compounding effects of good ones? Forget about goals, focus on systems instead. Prevailing wisdom claims that the best way to achieve what we want in life, getting into better shape, building a successful business, relaxing more and worrying less, spending more time with friends and family, is to set specific, actionable goals. For many years, this was how I approached my habits, too. Each one was a goal to be reached. I set goals for the grades I wanted to get in school, for the weights I wanted to lift in the gym, for the profits I wanted to earn in business. I succeeded at a few, but I failed at a lot of them. Eventually, I began to realize that my results had very little to do with the goals I set and nearly everything to do with the systems I followed. What's the difference between systems and goals? It's a distinction I first learned from Scott Adams, the cartoonist behind the Dilbert comic. Goals are about the results you want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results. If a fifth coach, your goal might be to win a championship. Your system is the way you recruit players, manage your assistant coaches, and conduct practice. You're an entrepreneur. Your goal might be to build $1 million business. Your system is how you test product ideas, hire employees, and run marketing campaigns. That you're a musician. Your goal might be to play a new piece. Your system is how often you practice, how you break down and tackle difficult measures, and your method for receiving feedback from your instructor. For the interesting question, if you completely your goals and focused only on your system, would you still succeed? For example, if you were a basketball coach and you ignored your goal to win a championship and focused only on what your team does at practice each day, would you still get results? I think you would. The goal in any sport is to finish with the best score, but it would be ridiculous to spend the whole game staring at the scoreboard. The only way to actually win is ambitious goals led to their success while overlooking all of the people who had the same objective but didn't succeed. Every Olympian wants to win a gold medal. Every candidate wants to get the job. And if successful and unsuccessful people share the same goals, then the goal cannot be what differentiates the winners from the losers. It wasn't the goal of winning the Tour de France that propelled the British cyclists to the top of the sport. Presumably, they had wanted to win the race every year before, just like every other professional team. The goal had always been there. It was only when they implemented A system of continuous small improvements achieved a different outcome. That they problem number 2. Achieving a goal is only a change a momentary imiset a goal to clean it. If you summon the energito tidy up, then you will have a clean room, for now. But if you maintain the same sloppy, pack-rat habits that led to a messy room in the first place, soon you'll be looking at a new pile of clutter and hoping for another burst of motivation. You're left chasing the same outcome because you never changed the system behind it. You treated a symptom without addressing the cause. Achieving a goal only changes your life for the moment. That's the counterintuitive thing about improvement. We think we need to change our results, but the results are not the problem. What we really need to change are the systems that cause those results. When you solve problems at the results level, you only solve them temporarily. In order to improve for good, you need to solve problems at the systems level. Fix the inputs and the outputs will fix themselves. Problem number 3. Goals restrict your happiness. Running. And a system can be successful in many different forms, not just the one you first envision. Problem number 4. Goals are at odds with long-term progress. Finally, a goal-oriented mindset can create a yo-yo effect. Many runners work hard for months, but as soon as they cross the finish line, they stop training. Pharisee is no longer there to motivate them. When all of your hard work is focused on a particular goal, what is left to push you forward after you achieve it? This is why many people find themselves reverting to their old habits after accomplishing a goal. The purpose of setting goals is to win the game. The purpose of building systems is to continue playing the game. True long-term thinking is goal-less thinking. It's not about any single accomplishment. It is about the cycle of endless refinement and continuous improvement. Ultimately, it is commitment to the process that will determine your progress, that a system of atomic habit desire. If you're having trouble changing your habits, problem isn't you. The problem is your system. Bad habits repeat themselves again and again, not because you want to change, but because you have the wrong system for change. To you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall the level of your systems. To focusing on the overall system, rather than a single goal, is one of the core themes of this book. It is also one of the deeper meanings behind the word atomic. By now, you've probably realized that in improvement. At first, these tiny routines seem insignificant, but soon they build on each other and fuel bigger wins that multiply to a degree that far outweighs the cost of your initial investment. They are both small and mighty. This is the meaning of the phrase atomic habits, a regular practice or routine that is not only small and easy to do, but also the source of incredible power of the system of compound growth. Component. Chapter summary. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Getting 1% better every day counts for a lot in the long run. Habits are a double-edged sword. They can work for you or against you, which is why understanding the details is essential. Small changes often appear to make no difference until you cross a critical threshold. The most powerful outcomes of any compounding process are delayed. You need to be patient. An atomic habit is a little habit that is part of a larger system. If you want better results, then forget about setting goals. Focus on your system instead. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. 2. How your habits shape your identity, and vice versa. Why is it so easy to repeat bad habits and so hard to form good ones? Few things can have a more powerful impact in your life than improving your daily habits. And yet it is likely that this time next year you'll be doing the same thing rather than something better. 3 layers of behavior change. Figure 3. There are 3 layers of behavior change. A change in your identity. Outcomes, a change in. Problem is not that one level is better or worse than another. Change are useful in their own way. The problem is the direction of change. Many people begin the process of changing their habits by focusing on what they want to achieve. This leads us to outcome-based habits. The alternative is to build identity-based habits. With this approach, we start by focusing on who we wish to become. Outcome-based habits. Identity-based habits. Figure 4. With outcome-based habits, the focus is on what you want to achieve in who you imagine two people resisting a cigarette. When offered to smoke, the first person says, "No thanks. I'm trying to quit." It sounds like a reasonable response, but this person still believes they are a smoker who is trying. Behind every system of actions are a system of beliefs. The system of a democracy is founded on beliefs like freedom, majority rule, and social equality. The system of a dictatorship has a very different set of beliefs like absolute authority and strict obedience. You can imagine many ways to try to get more people to vote in a democracy, but such behavior change would never get off the ground in a dictatorship. That's not the identity of the system. Voting is a behavior that is. The story of Brian Clark, an entrepreneur from Boulder. Then, Clark did something surprising. "I asked my wife to schedule my first ever manicure," he said. "My thought was that if I started paying to maintain my nails, I wouldn't chew them. And it worked, but not for the monetary reason. What happened was the manicure made my fingers look really nice for the first time. The manicurist even said that, other than the chewing, I had really healthy, attractive nails. Suddenly, I was proud of my fingernails. And even though that's something I had never aspired to, it made all the difference. I've never chewed my nails since, not even a single close call. And it's because I now take pride in properly caring for them." The ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes part of your identity. It's one thing to say, "I'm the type of person who wants this." It's something very different to say, "I'm the type of person who is this." The more pride you have in a particular aspect of your identity, the more motivated you will be to maintain the habits associated with it. If you're proud of how your hair looks, you'll develop all sorts of habits to care for and maintain it. If you're proud of the size of your biceps, you'll make sure you never skip an upper body workout. If you're proud of the scarves you knit, you'll be more likely to spend hours knitting each week. Once your pride gets involved, you'll fight tooth and nail to maintain your habits. True behavior change is identity change. You might start a habit because of motivation, but the only reason you'll stick with one is that it becomes part of your identity. Anyone can convince themselves to visit the gym or eat healthy once or twice, but if you don't shift the belief behind the behavior, then it is hard to stick with. Long-term changes, improvements are only temporary until they become part of who you are. The goal is not to read a book, the goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon, the goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to learn an instrument, the goal is to become a musician. Your behaviors are usually a reflection of your identity. What you do is an indication of the type of person you believe that you are, either consciously or non-consciously. Asterisk research has shown that once a person believes in a curse, once you have adopted an identity, it can be easy to let your allegiance to it impact your ability to change. Many people walk through life in a cognitive slumber, blindly following the norm's identity. Attitude there. I'm terrible with directions. I'm not a morning person. I'm bad at remembering people's names. I'm always late. I'm not good with technology. I'm horrible at math. And 1,000 other variations. When you have repeated astery to yourself for years, it is easy to slide into these mental grooves and accept them as a fact. And you begin to resist certain actions because that's not who I am. There. Sense. But if they conflict with your identity, you fail to put them into action. On any given day, you may struggle with your habits because you will overwhelmed or hundreds of other reasons. Over the run, however, the real reason you fail to stick with long habits is that your self-image gets in the way. Physically, you can't get too attached to one version of identity. Progress requires unlearning. Becoming the best your version of yourself requires you to continuously edit beliefs and to upgrade and expand your identity. This brings us to an important question. Fire beliefs and worldview play such an important role in your behavior. Where do they come from in the first place? How The two-step process to changing your identity. You have evidence that you are studious. If you go to the gym even when it's snowing, you have evidence that you are committed to fitness. The more evidence you have for a belief, the more strongly you will believe it. For most of my early life, I didn't consider myself a writer. If you were to ask any of my high school teachers or college professors, they would tell you I was an average writer at best, certainly not a standout. When I began my writing career, I published a new article every Monday and Thursday for there's few years. As the evidence grew, so did my identity as a writer. I didn't start out as a writer. I through my habits. Became one. Evidence of a new identity. And if a change is meaningful, it actually is big. That paradox of putting this all together, you can see that habits are the path to changing your identity. The most practical way to change who you are is to change what you do. Each time you write a page, you are a writer. Each time you practice the violin, you are a musician. 1. Decide the type of person you want to be. 2. Prove it to yourself with small wins. These are big questions, and many people aren't sure where to begin, but they do know what kind of results they want. To get six-pack abs, or to feel less anxious, or to double their salary. That's fine. Start there and work backward from the results you want. The type of person who could get those results. Ask yourself, who is the type of person that could get the outcome I want? Who is the type of person that could lose 40 pounds? Who is the type of person that could learn a new language? Who is the type of person that could run a successful startup? This process can lead to beliefs like, I'm the kind of manager who advocates for her. Once you have a handle on the type of person. Formation of all habits is a feedback loop, a concept we will explore in depth in the next chapter, but it's important to let your values, principles, and identity drive the loop rather than your results. The focus should always be on becoming the type of person. The real reason habits matter. Identity change is the North Star of habit change. The remainder of this book will provide you with step-by-step instructions on how to build better habits in yourself, your family, your team, your company, and anywhere else you wish. But the true question is, are you becoming the type of person you want to become? Their step is not what. Ultimately, your habits matter because they help you become the type of person you wish to be. They are the channel through which you develop your deepest beliefs about yourself. Quite literally, you become your habits. Chapter summary. There are 3 levels of change: outcome change, process change, and identity change. The most effective way to change your habits is to focus not on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become. Your identity emerges out of your habits. Every action is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Becoming the best version of yourself requires you to continuously edit your beliefs and to upgrade and expand your identity. The real reason habits matter is not because they can get you better results, although they can do that, but because they can change your beliefs about 3. How to Steps Build Better Habits in 4 Simple I. In 1898, a psychologist named Edward Thorndike conducted an experiment that would lay the foundation for our understanding of how habits form and the rules that guide our behavior. Thorndike was interested in studying the behavior of animals, and he started by working with cats. He would place each cat inside a device known as a puzzle box. The box was designed so that the cat could escape through a door by some simple act, such as pulling at a loop of cord, pressing a lever, or stepping on a platform. For example, one box contained a lever that, when pressed, would open a door on the side of the box. Once the door had been opened, the cat could dart out and run over to a bowl of food. Most cats wanted to escape as soon as they were placid inside the box. They would poke their nose into the corners, stick their paws through openings, and claw at loose objects. After a few minutes of exploration, the cats would happen to press the magical lever, the door would open, and they would escape. Thorndike tracked the behavior of each cat across many trials. In the beginning, the animals moved around the box at random. But as soon as the lever had been pressed and the door opened, the process of learning began. Gradually, each cat learned to associate the action. A few seconds. For example, Thorndike noted, Cat 12 took the following times to perform act. 160 seconds, 30 seconds, 90 seconds, 60, 15, 28, 20, 30, 22, 11, 15, 20. Why your brain builds habits. A habit is a behavior that has been repeated enough times to become automatic. The process of habit formation begins with trial and error. Whenever you encounter a new situation in life, your brain has to make a decision. How do I respond to this? The first time you come across a problem, you're not sure how to solve it. Like Thorndike's cat, you're just trying things out to see what works. The brain is busy learning the of action. Most effective course occasionally, like a cat pressing in a lever, you stumble across a solution. You're feeling anxious, and you discover that going for a run calms you down. You're mentally exhausted from a long day off work, and you learn that playing video games relaxes you. You're exploring, and then BM reward. This is the feedback loop behind all human solutions to recurring problems in our environment. As habits are created, the level of activity in the brain decreases. You learn to lock in on the cues that predict success and tune out everything else. When a similar situation arises in the future, you know exactly what to look for. There's no longer a need to analyze every angle. Once required created. Effort is now automatic. A habit has been. Habits are mental shortcuts learned from experience. In a sense, a habit is just a memory of the steps you. The science of how habits work. Figure Q, 5, craving, or response, habits and reward. Proceed through 4 stages in the same order. Course, these pursuits also indirectly improve our odds of survival and reproduction, which is the deeper motive behind everything we do. Your mind is continuously analyzing your internal and external environment for hints of where rewards are located. Because the cue is the first indication that we're close to a reward, it naturally leads to a craving. Cravings are the second step, and they are the motivational force behind every habit. Without some level of the casino are just background noise. Cues are meaningless until they are interpreted. The thoughts, feelings, and emotions of the observer are what transform a cue craving. Into the third step is the response. The response is the actual habit you perform, which can take the form of a thought. Expend, then you won't do it. Your response also depends on your ability. It sounds simple, but a habit can occur only if you are capable of doing it. If you want to dunk a basketball but can't jump high enough hoop, well, you're out of luck. To reach the finally. The response delivers a reward. Rewards are. Promotion brings more money and respect. Getting in shape improves your health and your dating prospects. But the more immediate benefit is that rewards satisfy your craving to eat or to gain status or to win approval. At least for a moment, rewards deliver and relief from craving. Contentment second. Rewards teach us which actions are worth remembering in the future. Your brain is our reward. Close the feedback loop and complete the habit cycle. If a behavior is insufficient in enough the 4 stages, it will not become a habit. Eliminate the cue and your habit will never start. Reduce the craving and you won't experience enough motivation to act. Make the behavior difficult and you won't be able to do it. And if the reward fails to satisfy your desire, then you'll have no. The habit loop. Figure 6. The 4 stages of habit are best described as a feedback loop. They form an enlesical that is running every moment. You will happen live. Next, this trying habit loop out different responses, continually scanning the environment, predicting what and learning from the results. Asterisk in summary, that you triggers a craving, which motivates a response, which provides our reward, which satisfies the. Together, these 4 steps form a neurological feedback loop: cue, craving, response, reward, cue, craving, response, reward, that ultimately allows you to create automatic habits. This cycle is known as the habit loop. This 4-step process isn't something that happens occasionally, but rather it is an endless feedback loop. We can split these 4 steps into 2 phases, the problem phase and the solution phase. The problem phase includes the cue and the craving, and it is when you realize that something needs to change. The solution phase includes response and the reward, and it is when you take action and achieve the change you desire. Problem phase 1. Q2. Craving. Solution phase 3. Response 4. Reward. All behavior is driven by the desire to solve a problem. Sometimes the problem is that you notice something good and you want to obtain it. Sometimes the problem is that you are experiencing pain and you want to relieve it. Either way, the purpose of every habit is to solve the problems you face. In the table on the following page, you can see a few examples of what this looks like in real life. Imagine walking into a dark room and flipping on the light switch. You have performed this simple habit so many times that it occurs without thinking. You proceed through all 4 stages in the fraction of a second. The urge to act strikes you without thinking. Problem phase 1.Q. Your phone buzzes with a new text message. Point 2. Craving. You want to learn the contents of the message. Solution phase 3. Response. You grab your phone and read the text. Point 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to read the message. Grabbing your phone becomes associated with your phone buzzing. Solution phase 3. Response. You grab your phone and read the cue. You are answering emails. Point 2. Craving. You begin to feel stressed and overwhelmed by work. You want to feel in control. Solution phase 3. Response. You grab your phone and read the text. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to read the message. Grabbing your phone becomes associated with your phone buzzing. Problem phase 1. Q. You are answering emails. 2. Craving. You begin to feel stressed and overwhelmed by work. You want to feel in control. Solution phase 3. Response. You bite your nails. Point 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to reduce stress. Biting your nails becomes associated with answering email. Solution phase 3. Response. You grab your phone and read the text. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to read the message. Grabbing your phone becomes associated with your phone buzzing. Problem phase 1. Q. You are answering emails. 2. Craving. You begin to feel stressed and overwhelmed by work. You want to feel in control. Solution phase 3. Response. You bite your nails. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to reduce stress. Biting your nails becomes associated with answering email. Problem phase 1.Q. You wake up. Point 2. Craving. You want to feel alert. Solution phase 3. Response. You grab your phone and read the text. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to read the message. Grabbing your phone becomes associated with your phone buzzing. Problem phase 1. Q. You are answering emails. 2. Craving. You begin to feel stressed and overwhelmed by work. You want to feel in control. Solution phase 3. Response. You bite your nails. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to reduce stress. Biting your nails becomes associated with answering email. Problem phase 1. Q. You wake up. 2. Craving. You want to feel alert. Solution phase 3. Response. You drink a cup of coffee. Point 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to feel alert. Drinking coffee becomes associated with waking up. Solution phase 3. Response. You grab your phone and read the text. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to read the message. Grabbing your phone becomes associated with your phone buzzing. Problem phase 1. Q. You are answering emails. 2. Craving. You begin to feel stressed and overwhelmed by work. You want to feel in control. Solution phase 3. Response. You bite your nails. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to reduce stress. Biting your nails becomes associated with answering email. Problem phase 1. Q. You wake up. 2. Craving. You want to feel alert. Solution phase 3. Response. You drink a cup of coffee. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to feel alert. Drinking coffee becomes associated with waking up. Problem phase 1.Q. You smell a donut shop as you walk down the street near your office. Point 2. Craving. You begin to crave a donut. Solution phase 3. Response. You grab your phone and read the text. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to read the message. Grabbing your phone becomes associated with your phone buzzing. Problem phase 1. Q. You are answering emails. 2. Craving. You begin to feel stressed and overwhelmed by work. You want to feel in control. Solution phase 3. Response. You bite your nails. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to reduce stress. Biting your nails becomes associated with answering email. Problem phase 1. Q. You wake up. 2. Craving. You want to feel alert. Solution phase 3. Response. You drink a cup of coffee. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to feel alert. Drinking coffee becomes associated with waking up. Problem phase 1. Q. You smell a donut shop as you walk down the street near your office. 2. Craving. You begin to crave a donut. Solution phase 3. Response. You buy a donut and eat it. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to eat a donut. Buying a donut becomes associated with walking down the street near your office. Problem phase 1.Q. You hit a stumbling block on a project at work. Point 2. Craving. You feel stuck and want to relieve your frustration. Problem phase 1. Q. You hit a stumbling block on a pro response. You pull out your phone and check social media. Point 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to feel relieved. Checking social media becomes associated with feeling stalled at work. Problem phase 1. Q. You hit a stumbling block on a project at work. 2. Craving. You feel stuck and want to relieve your frustration. Solution phase 3. Response. You pull out your phone and check social media. 4. Reward. You satisfy your craving to feel relieved. Checking social media becomes associated with feeling stalled at work. Problem phase 1. Q. 2. Craving. You walk you want into a bed room. Able to see. Solution phase 3. Response. You flip the light switch. Point 4. Reward. Becomes you satisfy associated with your craving being in to see. Turning on the light switch a dark room. By time we become adults, we rarely notice the bits that era runninger lives. Most of us never give you a second thought to the fact that we tie the same shoe first each morning or unplug the toaster after each. The 4 laws of behavior change. The second law, craving, make it attractive. The third law, response, make it easy. The fourth law, reward, make it satisfying. We can invert these laws to learn how to break a bad habit. Inversion of the second law, craving, make it unattractive. Inversion of the third law, response, make it difficult. Inversion of the fourth law, reward, make it unsatisfying. 1. How can I make it obvious? 2. How can I make it attractive? 3. How can I make it easy? 4. How can I make it satisfying? Chapter summary. A habit is a behavior that has been repeated enough times to become automatic. The ultimate purpose of habits is to solve the problems of life with as little energy and effort as possible. Any habit can be broken down into a feedback loop that involves 4 steps: cue, craving, response, and reward. The 4 laws of behavior change are a simple set of rules we can use to build better habits. They are: 1. Make it obvious. 2. Make it attractive. 3. Make it easy. And 4. Make it satisfying. The first law, make it obvious. 4. The man who didn't look right. The psychologist Gary Klein once told me a story about a woman who attended a family gathering. She had spent years working as a paramedic and, upon arriving at the event, took one look at her father-in-law and got very concerned. "I don't like the way you look," she said. Her father-in-law, who was feeling perfectly fine, jokingly replied, "Well, I don't like your looks, either." "No," she insisted. "You need to go to the hospital now." A few hours later, the man was undergoing life-saving surgery after an examination had revealed that he had a blockage to a major artery and was at immediate risk of a heart attack. Without his daughter-in-law's intuition, he could have died. What did the paramedic see? How did she predict his impending heart attack? When major arteries are obstructed, the body focuses on sending blood to critical organs and away from peripheral locations near the surface of the skin. The result is a change in the pattern of distribution of blood in the face. After many years of working with people with heart failure, the woman had unknowingly developed the ability to recognize this pattern on sight. She couldn't explain what it was that she noticed in her father-in-law's face, but she knew something was wrong. Similar stories exist in other fields. Example: military analysts can identify which blip on a radar screen is an enemy missile and which one is a plane from their own fleet, even though they are traveling at the same expertly produced counterfeit, even though they can't tell precisely which details tip them off. Experienced radiologists can look at a brain scan and predict where a stroke will develop before any obvious signs. With enough practice, you can pick up on the cues. These patterns, the less likely you become to question what you're doing and why you're doing it. I once heard of a retail clerk who was up empty gift cards after customers had used up the balance on the card. One day, the clerk cashed out a few customers in a row who purchased with gift cards. When the next person walked up, the clerk swiped the customer's actual credit card, picked up the scissors, and then cut it in. Rooted in your life, it is mostly non-conscious and automatic. If a habit remains mindless, yotson expecto improvite. As the psychologist Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The habits SCORECARD, the Japanese railway system, is regarded as one of the best in the world. If you ever find yourself riding a train in Tokyo, you'll notice that the conductors have a peculiar habit. As each operator runs the train, they proceed through a ritual of pointing at different objects and calling out commands. When the train approaches a signal, the operator will point at it and say, "Signal is green." As the train pulls into and out of each station, the operator will point, which is a simple exercise you can use to become more aware of your behavior. To create a list of your daily habits. Your own. Here's a sample of where your list might start. Turn off alarm. Check my phone. Go to the bathroom. Take a shower. Brush my teeth. Floss my teeth. Put on deodorant. A cup of tea. And soon. Once you have a full list, look at each behavior and ask yourself, is this a good habit, a bad habit, or a neutral habit? If it is a good habit, write plus next to it. If it is a bad habit, write. If it is a hang up towel to get dressed equals dry equals make a cup of tea, plus the marks you give to a particular habit will depend on your situation and your goals. For someone who is trying to lose weight, eating a bagel with peanut butter every morning might be a bad habit. For someone who is trying to bulk up and add muscle, the same behavior might be a good habit. It all toward asterisk depends on what you're working. Scoring your habits can be a bit more complex for another reason as well. The labels good habit and bad habit are slightly inaccurate. There are no good habits or bad habits. There are only effective habits. That is, wake up equals turn off alarm equals check my phone. Take a shower plus brush my teeth plus floss my teeth plus put on deodorant plus right now. That's how it's serving you. But it's healthy long-term behavior, not if you're still having trouble determining how to rate a particular habit. Here is a question I like to use. Does this behavior help me become the type of person? Hearing your bad habits spoken aloud makes the consequences seem more real. It adds weight to the action rather than letting yourself mindlessly slip into an old routine. This approach is useful even if you re-simply trying to remember a task on your to-do list. Just saying out loud, "Tomorrow, I need to go to the post office after lunch," increases the odds that you'll actually do it. You're getting yourself to acknowledge the need for action, and that can make all the difference. The process of behavior change always starts with awareness, strategies like pointing and calling, and the habits. Scorecard are focused on getting you to recognize your habits and acknowledge the cues that trigger them, which makes it possible to respond in a way that benefits you. Chapter summary. With enough practice, your brain will pick up on the cues that predict certain outcomes without consciously thinking about it. Once our habits become automatic, we stop paying attention to what we are doing. The process of behavior change always starts with awareness. You need to be aware of your habits before you can change them. Pointing and calling raises your level of awareness from a non-conscious habit to a more conscious level by verbalizing your actions. The habit scorecard is a simple exercise you can use to become more aware of your behavior. 5. The best way to start a new habit. In 2001, researchers in Great Britain began working with 248 people to build better exercise habits over the course of 2 weeks. The subjects were divided into 3 groups. In the first and second groups, 35 to 38% of people exercised at least once per week. Interestingly, the motivational presentation given to the second group seemed to have no meaningful impact in behavior. But beforehand about when and where to act, that intend to implement a particular habit. Is how you the cues that can trigger a habit come in a wide range of forms. The feel of your phone buzzing in your pocket, the smell of chocolate chip cookies, the sound of meditation. I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen. Marriage. I will make my partner a cup of tea at 8 a.m. in the kitchen. Take action at those times because hope is usually higher. If we have hope, we have a reason to take action. A fresh start feels motivating. There is another benefit to implementation intentions. Being specific about what you want and how you will achieve it helps you say no to things that derail progress, distract. Why? As the writer Jason Zweig noted, obviously you are never going to just work out without conscious thought. But like a dog salivating at a bell, maybe you start to get around the time of day you normally work out. And see, there are many ways to use implementation intentions your life and work. My favorite approach is one I learned from Stanford professor B.J. Fogg, and it is strategy one referred to as habit stacking. Habit stacking. A simple plan to overhaul while you are a habits. The French philosopher Denis Diderot lived nearly his entire life in poverty, but that all changed one day in 1765. Diderot's daughter was about to be married and he could not afford to pay for the wedding. Despite his lack of wealth, Diderot was well known for his role as the co-founder and writer of Encyclopédie, one of the most comprehensive encyclopedias of the time. When Catherine the drying your hands, which reminds you that you need to put the dye in the laundry, so you would laundry detergent to shopping list, and soon. No. Why is this important? When it comes to building new habits, you can. Habit stacking is a special form of a particular time and location. You pair it with a current habit. This method, which was created of as tiny by B.J. Fogg as part habits program, can be used to cue for nearly any habit. Asterisk designate obvious the habit stacking formulas. After current habit, for example, I will new habit. Running shoes. I will text a friend or family member or take I am running and how long it will. The key is to your desired behavior into something you already do each day. Once you have mastered this basic structure, you can begin to create larger stacks by habit stacking. Figure 7. Habit stacking increases the likelihood that you'll stick with a bit your new behavior on top of aneldo. This acting process can as be repeated Q4 chain numerous habits together. The next at each on your morning routine habit stack might look like this. 1 night after I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will meditate for 60 seconds. 2 after I meditate for 60 seconds, I will write my to-do list for the day. 3 after I write my to-do list for the day, I will immediately begin my first task. Or, consider this habit stack in the evening. 1 night after I finish eating dinner, I will put my plate directly into the dishwasher. 2 after I put my dishes away, I will immediately wipe down the counter. 3 after I wipe down the counter, I will set out my coffee mug for tomorrow morning. Minimalism. When I buy a new item, I will give something away. 1 in, 1 out. Forgetfulness. When I leave a public place, I will check the table and chairs to behind. Make sure I don't leave anything no matter how you use this strategy. The secret to chaotic and your kids keep running into the room. Think that may beta wrong place and time. Consider when you are most likely to be successful. Don't ask yourself to do a habit when you're likely to be occupied with something else. Your cue should also have the same frequency as your desired habit. If you want to do a habit every day, but get out of bed, take a shower, get dressed, brew a cup of coffee, eat breakfast, take the kids to school, end the workday, turn off the lights, get into bed. Your list can be much longer, but you get the idea. I in the second column. Write down aloft the things that happen to you each day without fail. For example, ends. The sun sets. Armed with these two lists, you can begin searching for the best place to layer your new habit into your lifestyle. Habit stacking works best when the cue is highly specific and immediately actionable. Many people select cues that are too vague. I made this mistake myself. When I wanted to start a push-up habit, my habit stack was, when I take a. The sun rises. You get a text message. The song you are listening to. The first law of behavior change is to make it. Chapter summary. The first law of behavior change is make it obvious. The two most common cues are time and location. Creating an implementation intention is a strategy you can use to pair a new habit with a specific time and location. The implementation intention formula is, I will behavior at time and location. Habit stacking is a strategy you can use to pair a new habit with a current habit. The habit stacking formula is, after current habit, I will. 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. In Thorndike, a primary care physician at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, had a crazy idea. She believed she could improve the eating habits of thousands of hospital staff and visitors without changing their willpower or motivation in the slightest way. In fact, she didn't plan on talking to them at all. Thorndike and her colleagues designed a 6-month study to alter the choice architecture of the hospital cafeteria. They started by changing how drinks were arranged in the room. Originally, the refrigerators located next to the cash registers in the cafeteria were filled with only soda. The researchers added, before after. Figure 8. Here is a representation of what the cafeteria looked like before the environment design shone after. Right. The shaded boxes indicate areas where bottled water was available in each instance. Because the amount of water in the environment was increased, without additional motivation, behavior shifted naturally. People often choose products not because of what they are, but because of where they are. If I walk into the kitchen and see a plate of cookies on the counter, they'll pick up half a dozen and start eating, even if I hadn't been thinking about them beforehand and didn't necessarily. But external. We are changed by the every habit is context-dependent. World around us.in 19 simple equation that makes a powerful statement. Behavior is a function of the person and their environment. Orb equals FPE. It didn't take long for Lewin's equation to be tested. Even bacteria have chemoreceptors, tiny sensory cells that allow them to detect toxic chemicals in air environment. In humans, perception is directed by sensory. Temperature drops before a storm, or when the pine in your gut rises during a stomachache, or when you fall off balance while walking in rocky ground. Receptors in your body pick up on a wide range of internal stimuli, such as the amount of salt in your blood or million sensory receptors. Approximately 10 million of those are dedicated to sight. Some experts estimate that half of the brain's resources are used on vision. Given that we are more dependent on vision than on any other sense, it should come as no surprise that visual cues are the greatest catalyst of our behavior. For this reason, a small change in what you see can lead to a big shift in what you do. As a result, you can imagine how important it is to live and work in environments that are filled with productive cues and ones devoid of unproductive. Thankfully, there is good news in his respect. You don't have to be the victim of your environment. You can also be the architect of. How to design your environment for success. Eventually, I took my own advice and redesigned my environment. I bought a large display bowl and placed it in the middle of the kitchen counter. The next time I bought apples, that was where they went, out in the open where I could see them. Almost like magic, I began eating a few apples each day simply because they were obvious rather than out of sight. Here are a few ways you can redesign your environment more obvious and make the cues for your preferred habits. On the bathroom counter. The context is the cue. Cue, but rather the whole situation. Watching your free, hearing the music at the bar, seeing the beers on tap. We mentally assign our habits to the locations in which they occur. The home, the office, the gym. Each location develops a connection to certain habits and routines. You establish a particular relationship with it. In one study, scientists instructed insomniacs to get into bed only when they were tired. If they couldn't fall asleep, They were told to sit in a different room until they became sleepy. Over time, subjects began to associate the context of their bed with the action of sleeping, and it became easier to quickly fall asleep when they climbed in bed. Their brains learned that sleeping, not browsing on their phones, not watching television, not staring at the clock, was the only action that happened in that room. Whenever possible, avoid mixing the context of one powerful device. But when you can use your phone to do nearly any, it becomes hard to associate it with one task. You want to be productive, but you're also conditioned to browse social media, check email, and play video games whenever mishmash of cues. You open your phone. It's a. You may be thinking, you don't understand. I live in New York City. My apartment is the size of a smartphone. I need each room to play multiple roles. Fair enough. If your space is limited, divide your room into activity zones. Chapter Summary. Small changes in context can lead to large changes in behavior over time. Every habit is initiated by a cue. We are more likely to notice cues that stand out. Make the cues of good habits obvious in your environment. Gradually, your habits become associated not with a single trigger, but with the entire context surrounding the behavior. The context becomes the cue. It is easier to build new habits in a new environment because you are not fighting against old cues. 7. The secret to self-control. In 1. Robert Steele from Connecticut and Morgan Murphy from Illinois made a discovery that stunned the American public. While visiting the troops, they had learned that over 15% of U.S. soldiers stationed there were heroin addicts. Follow-up research revealed that 35% of service members in Vietnam had tried heroin and as many as 20% were addicted, the problem worse than they had initially thought. The discovery led to a flurry of activity in Washington, including the creation of the Special Action Office of Drug Abuse Prevention under President Nixon to promote prevention and rehabilitation and to track addicted service members when they returned home. Lee Robbins was one of the researchers in charge, and a finding that completely upended the accepted beliefs about addiction. Robbins found that when soldiers who had been heroin users returned home, only 5% of them became re-addicted within a year, and just 12% relapsed within 3 years. In other words, approximately 9 out of 10 soldiers who used heroin in Vietnam eliminated their addiction nearly overnight. This finding contradicted the prevailing view at the time, which considered heroin addiction to be a permanent and irreversible condition. Instead, Robbins revealed that addictions could spontaneously dissolve if there was a radical. Someone becomes addicted at home or with friends, goes to a clinic to get clean, which is devoid of all the environmental stimuli that prompt their habit, then returns to their old neighborhood with all of their previous cues that caused them to get addicted in the first place. It's no wonder that usually you see numbers that are the exact opposite of those in the become re-addicted once they return home from rehab. The Vietnam studies ran counter to many of our cultural beliefs about bad habits because it challenged the conventional association of unhealthy behavior as a moral weakness. If you're overweight, a smoker, or an addict, you've been told your entire life that it is because you lack self-control, maybe even that you're a bad person. The idea that a little bit of discipline would control, it turns out those individuals aren't all that different from those who are struggling. Instead, disciplined people are better at structuring their lives in a way that does not require heroic willpower and self-control. In other words, perseverance, grit, and willpower are essential to success, but the way to improve these qualities isn't by wishing you were a more disciplined person, but by creating a more disciplined environment. This counterintuitive idea makes even more sense once you understand what happens when a habit is formed in the brain. A habit that has been encoded in the mind is ready to be used whenever the relevant situation arises. When Patty Olwell, a therapist from Austin, Texas, started smoking, she would often light up while riding horses with a friend. Eventually, she quit smoking and avoided it for years. She had also stopped riding. Decades later, she hopped on a horse again and found herself craving a cigarette for the first time in forever. The cues were still internalized, she just hadn't been exposed to them in a long time. Once a habit has been encoded, the urge to act follows whenever the environmental cues reappear. This is one reason behavior change techniques can backfire. Shaming obese people with weight loss presentations can make them feel stressed, and as a result, many people return to their favorite coping strategy, overeating. Showing pictures of blackened lungs to smokers leads to higher levels of anxiety, which drives many people to reach for a cigarette. If you're not careful about cues, you can cause the very behavior you want to stop. Bad habits are autocatalytic. The process feeds itself. They foster the feelings they try to numb. You feel bad, so you eat junk food. Because you eat junk food, you feel bad. Watching television makes you feel sluggish, so you watch more television because you don't have the energy to do anything else. Worrying about your health makes you feel anxious, which causes you to smoke to ease your anxiety, which makes your health even worse, and soon you're feeling more anxious. It's a downward spiral, a runaway train of bad habits. Researchers refer to this phenomenon as cue-induced wanting. An external trigger causes a compulsive craving to repeat a bad habit. Once you notice something, you begin to want it. This process is happening all the time, often without us realizing it. Scientists have found that showing addicts a picture of cocaine for just 33 milliseconds stimulates the reward pathway in the brain and sparks desire. This speed is too fast for the brain to consciously register. The addicts couldn't even tell you what they had seen, but they craved the drug all the same. Here's the punchline. You can break a habit, but you're unlikely to forget it. Once the mental grooves of habit have been carved into your brain, they are nearly impossible to remove entirely, even if they go unused for quite a while. And that means that simply resisting temptation is an ineffective strategy. It is hard to maintain a Zen attitude in a life filled with interruptions. It takes too much energy. In the short run, you can Shiseido overpower temptation. In the long run, we become a product of the environment that we live in. To put it bluntly, I have never seen someone consistently stick to environment-positive habits, and a negative. A more reliable approach is to cut bad habits off at the source point. One of the most practical ways to eliminate a bad cue that causes it. Habit is to reduce exposure to the trigger jealousy and envy. If you're playing too many video games, unplug console and put it in a closet after each use. This practice is an inversion of the first law of behavior change. Rather than make it obvious, you can make it invisible. I'm often surprised by how effective simple changes like these can be. Remove a single cue, and entire habit often fades away. The self-control is a short-term strategy, not a long-term one. You may be able to resist temptation once or twice, but it's unlikely you can muster the willpower to override your desires every time. Instead of summoning a new dose of willpower whenever you want to do the right thing, your energy would be better spent optimizing your good habits obvious and the cues of your bad habits invisible. Chapter summary. One of the most practical ways to eliminate a bad habit is to reduce exposure to the cue that causes self-control. 1. Is a short-term strategy, not a how to create a good habit. The first law, make it obvious. Long term. 1.1. Become 1.2 to 1.3. Fill aware use out the habits scorecard. Write down your current of them. Implementation intentions. I will behavior at time habit stacking. After current habit, I will any habits in habit to location. 1.4 visible. Design your environment. Make the cues of good habits obvious. And the 2ND law. Make it attractive. The 3RD law. Make it easy. The 4TH law. Make it satisfying. How to break a bad habit inversion of the first law. Make it invisible. 1.5 reduce exposure. Remove the cues of your bad habits from your environment. Inversion of the second law. Make it unattractive. Inversion of the third law. Make it difficult. Inversion of the fourth law. Make it unsatisfying. You can download a printable version of this habits cheat sheet at atomichabits.com/cheat sheet. The second law. Make it attractive. 8. How to make a habit irresistible. In the 1940s, a Dutch scientist named Nico Timbergen performed a series of experiments that transformed our understanding of what motivates us. Won a Nobel Prize for his work, was investigating herring gulls, the gray and white birds often seen flying along the seashores of North America. Adult herring gulls have a small red dot on their beak, and Timbergen noticed that newly hatched chicks would peck this spot whenever they wanted food. To begin one experiment, he created a collection of fake cardboard beaks, just a head without a body. When the parents had flown away, he went over to the nest and offered these dummy beaks to the chicks. The beaks were obvious fakes, and he assumed the baby birds would reject them altogether. However, when the tiny gulls saw the red spot on the cardboard beak, they pecked away just as if it were attached. to their own mother. They had a clear preference for those red spots, as if they had been genetically programmed at birth. Soon Tinbergen discovered that the bigger the red spot, the faster the chicks pecked. Eventually, he created a beak with 3 large red dots on it. When he placed it over the nest, the baby birds went crazy with delight. They pecked at the little red patches as if it was the greatest beak they had ever seen. Tinbergen and his colleagues discovered similar behavior in other animals. For example, the gray-lag goose is a ground-nesting bird. Occasionally, as the mother moves around on the nest, one of the eggs will roll out and settle on the grass nearby. Whenever this happens, the goose will waddle over to the egg and use to pull it back into the nest. Its beak and neck. Tinbergen discovered that the goose will pull any nearby round object, a light bulb, back into the nest. The bigger the object, the greater their much as possible is an excellent strategy for survival. Today, however, we live in a calorie-rich environment. Food is abundant, but your brain continues to crave it like it is scarce. Placing a high value on salt, sugar, and fat is no longer advantageous to our health. But ultimately, such strategies enable food scientists to find the bliss point. Opportunity is the more likely at forming is to become habit. Look around. Society is filled with highly engineered versions of reality that are more attractive than the world. The dopamine-driven feedback loop. Higher levels of dopamine. The same can be said for our most basic habitual behaviors like eating powder, having sex, and interacting socially. For years, scientists assumed dopamine was all about pleasure, but now we know it plays a central role in many. When it comes to habits, the key takeaway is the dopamine spike. Figure 9. Before habit is learned, A. Dopamine is released when there is experience for there's time. Phoenix time around, B. Dopamine cess before taking action, immediately after a cue is recognized. This spike leads to a feeling of desire and a craving to take action whenever the cue is spotted. Once an habit is learned, dopamine will not try an reward is experienced because you already expect the reward. However, if to seek you and expect a reward, but do not get tone, then dopamine will drop in disappointment. C. The sensitivity of dopamine response can clearly be seen when a reward is provided late. D. First, the UI is identified in dopamine say craving builds. Next, a response is taken but their reward does not come as quickly as expected and dopamine begins to drop. Finally, when the reward comes a little later than you had hoped, dopamine no spikes again. Was it right? Is as don't forget if the brain repeat this action saying, see, next time. Further evidence of the crucial role these processes play. Desire is the engine that drives behavior. Every action is taken because of the anticipation that precedes is the craving that leads to the response. If these insights reveal the importance of the two-ended law of behavior change. We need to make our habits attractive because it is the expectation of a rewarding experience that motivates us to act in the first place. This is where a strategy known as temptation bundling into play. Comes how to use temptation bundling to make habits more attractive. Ronan Byrne, an electrical engineering student in Dublin, Ireland, enjoyed watching Netflix, but he also knew that he should exercise more often than he did. Putting and connected it to his laptop and television. Then he wrote a computer program that would allow Netflix to run only if he was cycling at a certain speed. I've slowed down for too long. Whatever show he was watching would pause until he started pedaling again. He was also employing temptation bundling to make his exercise habit more attractive. Temptation bundling works by linking an action you want to do with an action you need to do. In Byrne's case, he bundled watching Netflix, the thing he wanted to do, with riding his stationary bike, the thing he needed to do. Businesses are masters at temptation bundling. For instance, when the American Broadcasting Company, Morco, line up for the 2014 to 2015 season, they promoted temptation bundling in a massive scale. Every Thursday, the company would air 3 shows created by screenwriter Shonda Rhimes: Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, and How to Get Away with Murder. They branded it as TGIT on ABC. TGIT stands for Thank God It's Thursday. In addition to promoting the shows, ABC encouraged viewers to make popcorn, drink red wine, and enjoy the evening. Andrew Kubitz, head of scheduling for ABC, described the idea behind the campaign. "We see Thursday night as a viewership opportunity, with either couples or women by themselves who want to sit down and escape and have fun and drink their red wine and have some popcorn." The brilliance of this strategy is that ABC was associating the thing they needed viewers to do, watch their shows, with activities their viewers already wanted to do, relax, drink wine, and eat popcorn. Over time, people began to connect watching ABC with feeling relaxed and entertained. If you drink red wine and eat popcorn at 8 p.m. every Thursday, then eventually 8 p.m. on Thursday means relaxation and entertainment. The reward gets associated with the cue, and the habit of turning on the television becomes more attractive. You are more likely to a behavior attractive if you get to do one of your favorite things at the same time. Perhaps you want to hear about the latest celebrity gossip, but you need to get in shape. Using temptation bundling, you could only read the tabloids and watch reality shows. At the gym, maybe you want to get a pedicure, but 1. After current habit, I will habit I need. 2. After habit I need, I will habit I want. 1. After I get my morning coffee, I will say one thing I'm grateful for that happened yesterday. Need. Point 2. After I say one thing I'm grateful for, I will read the news. Want. 1. After I get back from my lunch break, I will call 3 potential clients. Need. Point 2. After I call 3 potential clients, I will check ESPN. Want. If you want to check Facebook, but you need to exercise more. 1. After I pull out my phone, I will do 10 burpees. Need. Point 2. After I do 10 burpees, I will check Facebook. Want. The hope is that eventually you'll look forward to calling 3 clients or doing 10 burpees because it means you get to read the latest sports news or check Facebook. Doing the thing you need to do means you get to do the thing you want to do. We began this chapter by discussing supernormal stimuli, which are heightened versions of reality that increase our desire to take action. Temptation bundling is one way to create a heightened version of any habit by connecting it with something you already want. Engineering a truly irresistible habit is a hard task, but this simple strategy can be employed to make nearly any habit more than it would be otherwise attractive. Chapter summary. The second law of behavior change is make it attractive. The more attractive an opportunity is, the more likely it is to become habit-forming. Habits are a dopamine-driven feedback loop. When dopamine rises, so does our motivation to act. It is the anticipation of a reward, not the fulfillment of it, that gets us to take action. The greater the anticipation, the greater the dopamine spike. Temptation bundling is one way action you want to do need to do. To make your habits is to pair and with an action you. 9. The role of family and friends in shaping your habits. In 1965, a Hungarian man named Laszlo Polgar wrote a series of strange letters to a woman named Clara. Laszlo was a firm believer in hard work. In fact, it was all he believed in. He completely rejected the idea of innate talent. He claimed that with deliberate practice and the development of good habits, a child could become a genius in any field. His mantra was, "A genius is not born, but is educated and trained." Laszlo believed in this idea so strongly that he wanted to test it with his own children, and he was writing to Clara because he needed a wife willing to jump on board. Clara was a teacher, and although she may not have been as adamant as Laszlo, she also believed that with proper instruction, anyone could advance their skills. Laszlo decided chess would be a suitable field for the Eplin to raise his children to become chess prodigies. The kids would be homeschooled, a rarity in Hungary at the time. The house would be filled with chess books and pictures of famous chess players. The children would play against each other constantly and compete in the best tournaments they could find. The family would keep a meticulous file system of the tournament history of every competitor the children faced. There. The Polgar sisters grew up in a culture that prioritized chess above all else, praised them for it, rewarded them for it. In their world, an obsession with chess was normal. And as we are about to see, whatever habits. The seductive pull of social norms. French philosopher Michel de Montaigne wrote, "Thicus stamsalon, and practices of life and society sweep us most off the time. Going along with the group does not feel like a burden. Everyone wants to belong. If you grow up in a family that rewards you for your chess skills, playing chess will seem like a very attractive thing to do. If you work in a job where everyone wears expensive suits, then you'll be inclined to splurge on as well. If all of your friends are sharing an inside joke or using a new phrase, you'll want to do it, too, so they know that you get it. Behaviors are attractive when they help us fit in. We imitate the habits of three groups in particular. 1. The close point. 2. The many point. 3. The powerful. We pick up habits from the people around us. We accent despite reminding myself to stop. As a general rule, the closer we are to someone, more likely we are to imitate some of their habits. One groundbreaking study tracked 12,000 people for 32 years and found that a person's chances of becoming obese increased by, or she had a friend who became obese. It works the other way too. Another study found that if one person in a relationship lost weight, the other partner would also slim down about 1/3 of the time. Our friends and family. Similarly, one study found that the higher your best friend's IQ at age 11 or 12, the higher your IQ would be at age 15, even after controlling for natural levels of intelligence. We practices of those around us soak up the qualities, and one of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. New habits. It's reasonable to play jazz every day. Your culture sets your expectation for what is normal. Surround yourself with people who have the you'll rise together. Habits you want to have yourself. Make your habits even more attractive. You can take this. Video game lovers, movie fanatics, and average Joes who want to get in shape. Many people feel out of place the first time they go to the gym or try to change their diet. But if you are already similar to the other members around you, growth and change is no longer an individual pursuit. We are readers. We are musicians. We cyclists. The shared identity begins to reinforce your personal identity. This is why remaining part of after achieving a goal is crucial to maintaining your growth habits. It's friendship and community that embed an identity and help behaviors last over the long run. Point 2. Imitating the many new in the conforming to social norms. Figure 10. This is a representation of Tuckard Soust B. Solomon-esque and physomorphity experiments. The length of the linen thirst card, left, is obviously Thesamia's line C, but when a group of factors claimed it weighs a different length to research H, rather subjects that would believe often their change on their minds and eyes. Goeth the crowd. Whenever we are unsure how to act, we look to. But there can be a downside. Open as a member of one group and then switches to a new group that uses a less effective strategy, it will avoid using the superior nut cracking method just to blend in with the rest of the chimps. Humans are similar. There is tremendous internal pressure to comply with the norms of the group. The reward of being accepted is often greater than the reward of winning an argument, looking smart, or finding truth. Most days, we'd rather be wrong with the crowd than be right by ourselves. The human mind knows how to get along with others. It wants to get along with others. This is our natural mode. You can override it. You can choose to ignore the group or to stop caring what other people think, but it takes work. Running against the grain of your culture requires extra effort. When changing your habits means C. 3. Imitating the powerful. Humans everywhere pursue power, prestige, and status. We want pins and medallions on our jackets. We want president or partner in our titles. We want to be acknowledged, recognized, and praised. This tendency can seem vain, but overall, it's a smart move. Historically, a person with greater power and status has access to more resources, worries less about survival, and proves to be a more attractive mate. We are drawn to behaviors that earn us respect, approval, admiration, and status. We want to be the one in the gym who can do muscle-ups, or the musician who can play the hardest chord progressions, or the parent with the most accomplished children, because these things separate us from the crowd. Once we fit in, we start looking for ways to stand out. This is one reason we care so much about the habits of highly effective people. We try to copy the behavior of successful people because we desire success ourselves. Many of our daily habits are imitations of people we admire. You replicate the marketing strategies of the most successful firms in your industry. You make a recipe from your favorite baker. You borrow the storytelling strategies of your favorite writer. You mimic the communication style of your boss. We imitate people. High-status people enjoy the approval, respect, and praise of others. And that means if a behavior can get us approval, respect, and praise, we find it attractive. We are also motivated to avoid behaviors that would lower our status. We trim our hedges and mow our lawn because we don't want to be the slob of the neighborhood. When our mother comes to visit, we clean up the house because we don't want to be judged. We are continually wondering, what will others think of me, and altering our behavior based on the answer. The Polgar sisters, the chess prodigies mentioned at the beginning of this chapter, are evidence of the powerful and lasting impact social influences can have on our behavior. The sisters practiced chess for many hours each day and continued this remarkable effort for decades. But these habits and behaviors maintained their attractiveness, in part, because they were valued by their culture. From the praise of their parents to the achievement of different status markers like becoming a grandmaster, they had many reasons to continue their effort. Chapter Summary. Have a strong desire to fit the tribe.in and belong to tend to imitate the habits of 3 social groups: the close, family and friends, the many, the tribe, and the culture we live in determines which behaviors are attractive to us. We tend to adopt habits that are praised and approved of by our culture because the powerful, those with status and prestige. One of the most effective things you can do to build the better habits is to join a culture where normal behavior of the tribe often overpowers the desired behavior of the individual. Most days, we'd rather be wrong with the crowd than be right by ourselves. If a behavior can get us approval, respect, and praise, we find it attractive. 10. How to find and fix the causes of your bad habits. In late 2012, I was sitting in an old apartment just a few blocks from Istanbul's most famous street, Istiklal Caddesi. I was in the middle of a 4-day trip to Turkey and my guide, Mike, was relaxing in a worn-out armchair a few feet away. Mike wasn't really a guide. He was just a guy from Maine who had been living in Turkey for 5 years, but he offered to show me around while I was visiting the country, and I took him up on it. On this particular night, I had been invited to dinner with him and a handful of his Turkish friends. There were 7 of us, and I was the only one who hadn't, at some point, smoked at least 1 pack of cigarettes per day. I asked one of the Turks how it frees you from the mental burden of smoking, smoking at all. Where cravings come from. Some of our underlying motives include asterisk. Conserve energy. Obtain food and water. Find love and reproduce. Connect and bond with others. Achieve status and prestige. A craving is just a specific manifestation of a deeper underlying motive. Your brain did not evolve with. Find love and reproduce equals using Tinder. Connect and bond with others equals browsing Facebook. When social acceptance and approval equals posting on. Reduce uncertainty equals searching on Google. Achieve status and prestige equals playing video games. Your habits are modern-day solutions to ancient desires, new versions of old vices. The underlying motives behind human behavior remain the same. The specific habits we perform differ based on the period of history. Here's the powerful part. There are many different ways to address the same underlying motive. One person might learn to reduce stress by smoking a cigarette. Another person learns to ease their anxiety by going for a run. Your current habits are not necessarily the best way to solve the problems you face. They are just the methods you learn to use. Once you associate a solution with the problem you need to solve, you keep coming back to it. Habits are all about associations. These associations determine whether we predict a habit to be worth repeating or not. As we covered in our discussion of the first law, your brain is continually absorbing information and noticing cues in the environment. Every time you perceive a cue, your brain runs a simulation and makes a prediction about what to do in the next moment. Cue. You notice that the stove is hot. Prediction. If I touch it, I'll get burned, so I should avoid touching it. Cue. You see that the traffic light turned green. Prediction. If I step on the gas, I'll make it safely through the intersection and get closer to my destination, so I should step on the gas. You see a cue, categorize it based on past experience, and determine the appropriate response. This all happens in an instant, but it plays a crucial role in your habits because every action is preceded by a prediction. Life feels reactive, but it is actually predictive. All day long, you are making your best guess of how. Our behavior is heavily dependent on these predictions. Put another way, our behavior is heavily dependent on how we interpret the events that happen to us, not necessarily the objective reality of the events themselves. Two people can look at the same cigarette, and one feels the urge to smoke while the other is repulsed by the smell. The same cue can spark a good habit or a bad habit depending on your prediction. The cause of your habits is actually the prediction that precedes them. These predictions lead to feelings, which is how we typically describe a craving, a feeling, a desire, an urge. Feelings and emotions transform the cues we perceive and the predictions we make into a signal that we can apply. They help explain what we are currently sensing. For instance, whether or not you realize it, you are noticing how warm or cold you feel right now. If the temperature drops by 1 degree, you probably won't do anything. If the temperature drops 10 degrees, however, you'll feel cold and put on another layer of clothing. Feeling cold was the signal that prompted you to act. You have been sensing the cues the entire time, but it is only when you predict that you would be better off in a different state that you take action. A craving is the sense that something is missing. It is the desire to change your internal state. When the temperature falls, there is a gap between what your body is currently sensing and what it wants to be sensing. This gap between your current state and your desired state provides a reason to act. Desire is the difference between where you are now and where you want to be in the future. Even the tiniest action is tinged with the motivation to feel differently than you do in the moment. When you binge eat or light up or browse social media, what you really want is not a potato chip or a cigarette or a bunch of likes. What you really want is to feel different. Our feelings and emotions tell us whether to hold steady in our current state or to make a change. They help us decide the best course of action. Neurologists have discovered that when emotions and feelings are impaired, we actually lose the ability to make decisions. We have no signal of what to pursue and what to avoid. As the neuroscientist Antonio Damasio explains, it is emotion that allows you to mark things as good, bad, or indifferent. To summarize, the specific cravings you feel and habits you perform are really an attempt to address your fundamental underlying motives. Whenever a habit successfully addresses a motive, you develop a craving to do it again. In time, you learn to predict that checking social media will help you feel loved or that watching YouTube will allow you to forget your fears. Habits are attractive when we associate them with positive feelings, and we can use this insight to our advantage rather than to our detriment. How to reprogram your brain. Habits. You can reframe "I am nervous" to "I am excited and am getting an adrenaline rush" to help me concentrate. These little mindset shifts aren't magic, but they can help change situation. The feelings you associate with a particular habit, or if you want to take it a step further, you can create a motivation ritual. You simply practice associating your habits with something you enjoy, then you can use that cue. Ed Lattimore, a boxer and writer from Pittsburgh, benefited from a similar strategy without knowing it. Odd realization, he wrote. My focus and concentration goes up just by putting me headphones on while writing. I didn't even have to play any music. Without realizing it, he was conditioning himself. In the beginning, he put his headphones on, played some music he enjoyed, and did throwing before each game. The whole sequence took about 10 minutes, and I did it the same way every single time. While it physically warmed me up to play, more importantly, it put me in the right mental state. I began to associate my pre-game ritual with feeling competitive and focused. Even if I wasn't motivated beforehand, by the time I was done with my ritual, I was in game mode. You can adapt this strategy for nearly any purpose. Say you want to feel happier in general. Find something that makes you truly happy. Maybe you take 3 deep breaths and smile. 3 deep breaths. Smile. Pet the dog. Repeat. Eventually, you'll begin to associate this breathe and smile routine with being in a good mood. It becomes a cue that means feeling happy. Once established, you can break it out anytime you need to change your emotional state. Stressed at work? Take 3 deep breaths and smile. Sad about life? 3 deep breaths and smile. Once a habit has been built, the cue can prompt a craving, even if it has little to do with the original situation. The key to finding and fixing the causes of your bad habits is to reframe the associations you have about them. It's not easy, but if you can reprogram your predictions, you can transform a hard habit into an attractive one. Chapter Summary. The inversion of the second law of behavior change is make it unattractive. Every behavior has a surface-level craving and a deeper underlying motive. Your habits are modern-day solutions to ancient desires. The cause of your habits is actually the prediction that precedes them. The prediction leads to a feeling. Highlight the benefits of avoiding a bad habit to make it seem unattractive. Habits are attractive when we associate them with positive feelings and unattractive when we associate them with negative feelings. Create a motivation ritual by doing something you enjoy immediately before a difficult habit. How to create a good habit. The first law. Make it obvious. 1.1. Become 1.2 to 1.3. Fill use out the habit scorecard. Of them. Implementation intentions. I habit stacking. After CURRENT, write down your current will, behavior, at, time, habit, I will, any habits in habit, to location. 1.4. Visible. Design your environment. Make the use of good habits obvious. And the second law. Make it attractive. 2.1. In 2.2. Use action joint temptation bundling. Pairing you need to do. A culture where your action you want to desired behavior is theto normal with behavior. 2.3. Difficult create habit. A motivation ritual. Do something you enjoy immediately before you. The third law. Make it easy. The fourth law. Make it satisfying. How to break a bad habit. Inversion of the first law. Make it invisible. 1.5. Environment. Reduce exposure. Remove the cues of your bad habits from your inversion of the second law. Make it unattractive. 2.4. Reframe your mindset. Highlight the benefits of avoiding your bad habits. Inversion of the third law. Make it difficult. Inversion of the fourth law. Make it unsatisfying. You can download a printable version of this habits cheat sheet at atomichabits.com/cheat sheet. The third law. Make it easy. 11. Walk slowly, but never backward. On the first day of class, Jerry Yulesman, a professor at the University of Florida, divided his film photography students into 2 groups. Everyone on the left side of the classroom, he explained, would be in the quantity group. They would be graded solely on the amount of work they produced. On the final day of class, he would tally the number of photos submitted by each student. 100 photos would rate an A, 90 photos A B, 80 photos A C, and so on. Meanwhile, everyone on the right side of the room would be in the quality group. They would be graded only on the excellence of their work. They would only need to produce 1 photo during the semester, but to get an A, it had to be a nearly perfect image. At the end of the term, he was surprised to find that all the best photos were produced by the quantity group. During the semester, these students were busy taking photos, experimenting with composition and lighting, testing out various methods in the darkroom, and learning from their mistakes. In the process of creating hundreds of photos, they honed their skills. Meanwhile, the quality group sat around speculating about perfection. In the end, they had little to show for their efforts other than unverified theories and 1 mediocre photo. Asterisk. It is easy to get bogged down trying to find the optimal plan for change, the fastest way to lose weight, the best program to build muscle, the perfect idea for a side hustle. We are so focused on figuring out the best approach that sometimes motion is useful, but it will never produce an outcome by itself. It doesn't matter how many times you go talk to the personal trainer, that motion will never get you in shape. Only the action of working it will get the result you're looking to achieve. If motion does lead to results, why do we do? Motion allows us to feel like we're making progress without running the risk of failure. Most of us are experts at avoiding criticism. It doesn't feel good to fail or to be judged publicly, so we tend to avoid situations where that might happen. And that's the biggest reason we slip into motion rather than taking action. You want to delay failure. If you want to master a habit, the key is to start. 1949, this phenomenon is commonly known as neurons that fire together wire together. Hebb's law. Repeating a habit leads to clear physical changes in the brain. In musicians, the cerebellum, critical for physical movements like plucking a guitar string or pulling a violin bow, is larger than it is in non-musicians. Mathematicians, meanwhile, have increased gray matter in the inferior parietal lobule, which plays a key role in computation. Amount of time spent in field. The older and more experienced the mathematician, in gray matter. The greater the increase when scientists analyzed the brains of taxi drivers in. The hippocampus decreased in size when a driver retired, like the muscles of the body responding to regular weight training. Particular regions of the brain adapt as they are used and atrophy as they are abandoned. Of course, the importance of repetition in establishing. Each time you repeat an action, you are activating. Photos did not. One group engage in active practice, the other in passive learning. One in motion. Action, the other in all habits follow a similar trajectory from effortful practice to automatic behavior, a process known as automaticity. Automaticity is the ability to perform the habit line. Figure 11. In the beginning, point A habit requires a good deal of concentration to perform. After a few repetitions, point B, it gets easier, but still requires some conscious attention. With enough practice, point C, the habit becomes more automatic and conscious. Beyond this threshold, the habit thinking. A new habit line, the behavior can has been formed. Be done more or less without. On the following page, you'll see what it looks like when researchers track the level of automaticity for an actual habit. Walking 10 minutes per day. Figure 12. This graph shows someone who built the habit of walking for 10 minutes after breakfast each day. Notice that as the repetitions increase, it's so can be automaticity until the behavior is as easy and automatic as times. It's the frequency that makes the difference. Your current habits have been internalized over the course of hundreds, if not thousands, of repetitions. New habits require the same level of frequency. You need to string together enough successful attempts until the behavior is. Whether an action is fully automatic is of importance. To build a habit, you need to practice it. And the most effective way to make practice happen is to adhere to the third law of behavior change, make it easy. The chapters that follow will exactly that. Chapter summaries show you how to do. The third law of behavior change is make it easy. The most effective form of learning is practice, not planning. Focus on taking action, not being in motion. Habit formation is the process by which a behavior becomes progressively more automatic through repetition. The amount of time you have been performing a habit is not as important as the number of times you have performed it. 12. The law of least effort. In his award-winning book, Guns, Germs, and Steel, Anthropologist and Biologist, Diamond points out a simple fact. Different continents have different shapes. At first glance, this statement seems rather obvious and unimportant, but it turns out to have a profound impact on human behavior. The primary axis of the Americas runs from north to south. That is, the landmass of North and South America tends to be tall and thin rather than wide and fat. The same is generally true for Africa. Meanwhile, the landmass that makes up Europe, Asia, and the Middle East is the opposite. This massive stretch of land tends to be more east-west in shape. According to Diamond, this difference in shape played a significant role in the spread of agriculture over the centuries. When agriculture began to spread around the globe, farmers had an easier time expanding along east-west routes than along north-south ones. This is because locations along the same latitude generally share similar climates, amounts of sunlight and rainfall, and changes in season. These factors allowed farmers in Europe and Asia to domesticate a few crops and grow them along the entire stretch of land from France to China. The shape of human behavior. Figure 13. The primary axis of Europe and Asia is east-west. The primary axis of the Americas and Africa is north-south. This leads to a wider range of climates up and down the Americas than across Europe and Asia. As a result, agriculture spread nearly twice as fast across Europe and Asia than it did elsewhere. The behavior of farmers, even across hundreds or thousands of friction in the environment. By comparison, the climate varies greatly when traveling from north to south. Just imagine how different the weather is in Florida compared to Canada. You can be the most talented farmer in the world, but it won't help you grow Florida oranges in the Canadian winter. Snow is a poor substitute for soil. In order to spread crops along north-south routes, farmers would need to find and domesticate new plants whenever the climate changed. Every action requires a certain amount of crucialto. Have as many things working in your favor as possibly so that you can overcome the challenges life naturally throws your way. The less friction you face, the easier it is for your stronger self to emerge. The idea behind Make It Easy is not to only do easy things. Imagine you are holding a garden hose that is bent in the middle. Some water can flow through, but not very much. If you want to increase the rate at which water passes through a hose, you have two options. The first option is to crank up the valve and force more water out. Trying to pump up your motivation to stick with a hard habit is trying to force water through a bent hose. You can do it, but it requires a lot of effort and increases the tension in your life. Meanwhile, making your one of the most effective ways to reduce the build when they fit into the flow of your life. You are more likely to go to the gym if it is on your way to work because stopping doesn't add much friction to your lifestyle. By comparison, if the gym is off the path of your normal commute, even by just a few blocks, now you're going out of your way to get there. Perhaps even more effective is reducing the friction within your home or office. Too often, we try to start habits in high-friction environments. We try to follow a strict diet while we are out to dinner with friends. We try to write a book in a chaotic household. We try to concentrate while using a smartphone filled with distractions. It doesn't have to be this way. We can remove the points of friction that hold us back. This is precisely what electronics manufacturers in Japan began to do in the 1970s. In an article published in the New Yorker titled Better All the Time, James Shurawaiki writes, Japanese firms emphasized what came to be known as lean production, relentlessly looking to remove waste of all kinds from the production process, down to redesigning workspaces, so workers didn't have to waste time twisting and turning to reach their tools. The result was that Japanese factories were more efficient and Japanese products were more reliable than American ones. In 1974, service calls for American-made color televisions were 5 times as common as for Japanese televisions. By 1979, it took American workers 3 times as long to assemble their sets. I like to refer to this strategy as addition by subtraction. Asterisk, the Japanese companies looked for every point of friction in the manufacturing process and eliminated it. As they subtracted wasted effort, they added customers and revenue. Similarly, when we remove the points of friction that sap our time and energy, we can achieve more with less effort. This is one reason tidying up can feel so good. We are simultaneously moving forward and lightening the cognitive load our environment places on us. If you look at the most habit-forming products, you'll notice that one of the things these goods and services do best is remove little bits of friction from your life. Meal delivery services reduce the friction of shopping for groceries. Dating apps reduce the friction of making social introductions. Ride-sharing services reduce the friction of getting across town. Text messaging reduces the friction of sending a letter in the mail. Prime the environment for future use. Shower. He wipes down the toilet while the shower is for, as he notes, the perfect time to clean the toilet is right before you wash yourself in the shower. Anyway, The purpose of resetting each room is not simply to clean up after the last action, but to prepare for the NE. These are simple ways to have least resistance to make the good habit the path. You can also invert this principle and prime the environment to make bad behaviors difficult if you find yourself. Whenever possible, I leave my phone in a. Whether we are approaching behavior change as an India coach or a leader, we should ask ourselves the same question. How can what is in a world where it's easy to do what's right? Redesign your life so the actions that matter most aerial so the actions that are easiest to do. Chapter Summary. Human behavior follows the law of least effort. We will naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of work. Create an environment where doing the right thing is as easy as possible. Reduce the friction associated with good behaviors. When friction is low, habits are easy. Increase the friction associated with bad behaviors. When friction is high, habits are difficult. Prime your environment to make future actions easier. 13. How to stop procrastinating by using the 2-minute rule. Twyla Tharp is widely regarded as one of the greatest dancers and choreographers of the modern era. In 1992, she was awarded a MacArthur Fellowship, often referred to as the Genius Grant, and she has spent the bulk of her career touring the globe to perform her original works. She also credits much of her success to simple daily habits. I begin each day of my life with a ritual, she writes. I wake up at 5:30 a.m., put on my workout clothes, my leg warmers, my sweatshirt, and my hat. I walk outside my Manhattan home, hail a taxi, and tell the driver to take me to the Pumping Iron Gym at 91st Street and 1st Avenue, where I work out for 2 hours. The ritual is not the stretching and weight training. I put my body through each morning at the gym. The ritual is the cab. The moment I tell the driver where to go, I have completed ritual. It's a simple act, but doing it the same way each morning habitualizes it, makes it repeatable, easy to do. It reduces chance that I will skip it or do. Determine the choices you make when you are thinking. Grabbing a video game controller. These choices are fork in the road. Decisive moments. Figure 14. The difference between a good day and a bad day is often a few productive and healthy choices made at decisive moments. Each opponent is thrust out like a fork in the road, and these day and can ultimately lead to very different choices stack outcomes. Decisive moments set the options available to your future self. For instance, walking into a restaurant is a decisive moment because it determines what you will be. Eating for lunch. Technically, you are in control of what you order, but in a larger sense, you can only order on item if it is in the menu. If you walk into a steakhouse, you can get a sirloin or a ribeye, but not sushi. Your options are constrained by what's available. They are shaped by first choice that we are limited by where our habits lead us. Thesis why mastering the decisive moments throughout your day is so important. Each day is made up of many moments, but the 2-minute rule. You learn that nearly any habit can best go down into a 2-minute version. Read before bed each night becomes read 1. Study for class becomes open minutes. Fold the laundry becomes fold 1 pair of socks. Run 3 miles becomes time my running shoes. The idea is to make your habits as easy as possible to start. Anyone can meditate for 1 minute, read 1. Just discussed, this is a powerful strategy because once you've started doing the right thing, it is much easier to continue doing it. A new habit should not feel like a challenge. The actions that follow can be challenging, but the first 2 minutes should be easy. What you want is a gateway habit that naturally leads you down a more very easy, moderate, hard, very hard. Put on your running shoes. Walk 10 minutes, walk 10,000 marathon steps, run a 5K, run a. Write 1 sentence, write 1 paragraph, write 1,000 words, write a. 5,000-word article. Write a book. Open your notes. Study for 10 minutes. Study for straight A's. Earn 3 hours. Get a PhD. People often think it's weird to get hyped about reading 1 page, or meditating for 1 minute, or making 1 sales call. But the point is not to do one thing. The point is to master the habit of showing up. The truth is, little hope of mastering thinner details. Instead of trying to engineer a perfect habit from the start, do the easy thing on a more consistent before you can optimize. Basis. You have to standardize as you master the art of showing up. The first 2 minutes simply becoming a ritual at the beginning of habits. Easier, but actually the ideal way to master a difficult skill. The more you ritualize the beginning of a process, the more likely it becomes that you can slip into the state of deep focus that is required to do great things. By doing the same warm-up before every workout, you make it easier to get into a state of peak performance. By following the same creative ritual, you make it easier to get into the hard work of creating. By developing a consistent power-down habit, you make it easier to get to bed at a reasonable time each night. You may not be able to automate the whole process, but you can make the first action mindless. Make it easy to start, and the rest will follow. The 2-minute rule can seem like a trick to some people. You know that the real goal is to do more than just 2 minutes, so it may feel like you're trying to fool yourself. Nobody is actually aspiring to read 1 page, or do 1 push-up, or open their notes. And if you know it's a mental trick, why would you fall for it? If the 2-minute rule feels forced, try this. Do it for 2 minutes, and then stop. Go for a run, but you must stop after 2 minutes. Start meditating, but you must stop after 2 minutes. Study Arabic, but you must stop after 2 minutes. It's not a strategy for starting, it's the whole thing. Your habit can only last 120 seconds. One of my readers used this strategy to lose over 100 pounds. In the beginning, he went to the gym each day, but he told himself wasn't allowed to for more than 5 minutes. Go to the gym, exercise for 5 minutes, and leave as soon as his time was up. After a few weeks, he looked around and thought, well, I'm always coming here anyway. I might as well start staying a little longer. A few years later, the weight was gone. Journaling provides another example. Nearly everyone can benefit from getting their thoughts out of their head and onto paper, but most people give up after a few days or avoid it entirely because journaling feels like a chore. The secret is to always stay below the point where it feels like work. Greg McEwen, a leadership consultant from the United Kingdom, built a daily journaling habit by specifically writing less than he felt like. He always stopped journaling before it seemed like a hassle. Ernest Hemingway believed in similar advice for any kind of writing. The best way is to always stop when you are going good, he said. Minutes. You are casting votes for your new identity that you're not worried about getting in shape. You are focused on becoming the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. You're taking the smallest action that confirms the type of person you want to be. That we rarely think about change this way because everyone is consumed by the end goal. But 1 push-up is better than not exercising. 1 minute off-water practice is. Examples of habit SHNG becoming an early riser. Phase 1. Be home by 10 p.m. every night. Phase up that M.2. Every have night. All devices, TV, phone, etc. turned off. Be 10 phase book. Phase 3. Talking 4:5. Be with light swakey and you're off up bed by partner. By 10 at 610 p.m. Every a.m. Every night. Day.night. Reading Gebeckham Gan phase 1:2:3:4:5. Start stop stopiating eating vegetables at animals with all animal each meal. Point 4 leg s 2 leg s no cow, chicken, fish, milk, pig, turkey, clams, cheese, lamb, etc. Scallops, etc. etc. Legs products, eggs, starting to exercise phase 1:2:3:4:5. Change step drive exercise into out 2-4 workout clothes. The door the gym, 15 minutes times per. Try taking exercise 4 at least week. A 5 and walk. Minutes per and week. Leave. Nearly any larger life goal can be transformed into minute behavior. I want to live a healthy and long life. I need to stay in shape. I need to exercise. I need to change into my workout clothes. I want to have a happy marriage. I need to be a good partner. I should do something each day to make my partner's life plan for next week easier. I should meal whenever you are struggling to stick with a habit. You can employ the 2-minute rule. It's a simple way to. Chapter summary. The more you ritualize the beginning of a process, the more likely it becomes that you can slip into the state of deep focus that is required to dog-read things. Standardize before you optimize. You habit that doesn't exist can improve you. 14. How to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. In the summer of 1830, Victor Hugo was facing an impossible deadline. 12 months earlier, the French author had promised his publisher a new book. But instead of writing, he spent that year pursuing other projects, entertaining guests, and delaying his work. Frustrated, Hugo's publisher responded by setting a deadline less than 6 months away. The book had to be finished by February 1831. Hugo concocted a strange plan to beat his procrastination. He collected all of his clothes and asked an assistant to lock them away in a large chest. He was left with nothing to wear except a large shawl. Lacking any suitable clothing to go outdoors, he remained in his study and wrote furiously during the fall and winter of 1830. The Hunchback of Notre Dame was published 2 weeks early on January 14, 1831. Asterisk. Sometimes success is less about making good habits easy and more about making bad habits hard. This is an inversion of the third law of behavior change: make it difficult. If you find yourself continually struggling to follow through on your plans, then you can take a page from Victor Hugo and make your bad habits more difficult by creating what psychologists call a commitment device. A commitment device is a choice you make in the present that controls your actions in the future. It is a way to lock in future behavior, bind you to good habits, and restrict you from bad ones. When Victor. There are many ways to create a commitment. Start. Email an entrepreneur you respect and set up a consulting call. Act. The only way to bail is to cancel the meeting and may cost money. Which requires effort. Commitment devices increase the odds that you'll do the right thing in the future by making bad habits difficult in the present. However, we can do even better. We can make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. How to automate a habit and never think about it again. In the mid-1800s, employee theft was a common problem. Receipts were kept in an open drawer and could easily be altered or discarded. There were no video cameras to review behavior and no software to track transactions, unless you were willing to hover over your employees every minute of the day or to manage all transactions yourself. Incorruptible Cashier. Designed by fellow Dayton resident James Ritty, it was the first cash register. The machine automatically locked transaction. The cash and receipts inside after each. Patterson bought 2 for $50 each. Employee theft at his store vanished overnight. In the next 6 months, Patterson's business went from losing money to making $5,000 in profit, the equivalent of more than. The best way to break a bad habit is to make it. Would find themselves living a better life a year from now. These one-time actions are a straightforward way to employ the third law of behavior change. They make it easier to sleep well, eat healthy, be productive, save money, and generally live better. ONETIMECDONSTHAD Nutrition INGOODHABITS Buy a water. Use smaller plate. Filter. Toto reduce. Clean your caloric intake. Sleep. Drinking water. Buy a good. Get blackout curtains. Remove your television mattress. From your bedroom. Productivity. Unsubscribe from emails. Group chats. Up your inbox. Turn off notifications and mute. Set your phone to silent. Use email filters to clear. Delete games and social media apps on your phone. Happiness. Get a dog. Move to a friendly, social neighborhood. General health. Get vaccinated. Buy good shoes. Buy a supportive chair. Avoid or back pain. Standing desk. Finance. Enroll in and set up automatic cut cable service. Ask service providers automatic bill to savings pay. Lower plan. Your bills. Of course, there are many ways to automate good habits and eliminate bad ones. Typically, they involve putting technology to work for you. Technology can transform actions. Other examples include medicine. Prescriptions can be automatically refilled. Off with a website blocker. During the year I was writing this book, experimented with a new time management strategy. Every Monday, my assistant would reset the passwords on all my social media accounts, which logged me out on each device. All week I worked without distraction. On Friday, she would send me the new passwords. I had the entire weekend to enjoy what social media had to offer until. Chapter Summary. The ultimate way to lock in future behavior is to automate your habits. One-time choices, like buying a better mattress or enrolling in an automatic savings plan, are single actions that automate your future habits and deliver increasing returns over time. Using technology to automate your habits is a way to guarantee good habits. Make it obvious. Write down your current will behavior at time that the habits inhabit. Obvious do normal most righto location and with behavior point 1.1. Become 1.2 colon 1.3 colon 1.4. 6 Cybele point 2.1. In 2.2. Reliable and effective. Behavior. Filaware use design use action join create habit. How to create the one stout the habits of them. Implementation intentions. Habit stacking. After your environment. Make the tune temptation bundling. Pair law. Scorecard. I current the law. And do. Habit. Use of make it action you will new good habits attractive went to is the. You're easier. Outsize block 2.3. Difficult 3.1. Good 3.2 colon 3.3. Impact point 3.4. Done 3.5. In reduce habits. Prime easy and automate future you need to a culture where a motivation ritual. The 3-word friction. Decrease the environment. Prepare the decisive moment. The 2-minute rule. 2 minutes or your habits. Invest behavior. The 4-hour do law. Number your optimized downscale. Less. In law. Desired behavior something you make it off steps environment. Toad small your habits technology and make it enjoy immediately before easy between you and make future actions choices that deliver until they can one-time purchases that satisfying. How to break a bad habit. Inversion of the 1SD law. Make it invisible 1.5. Reduce exposure. Remove the cues environment. Fewer bad habits from your inversion of the 2ND law. Make it unattractive 2.4. Reframe your mindset. How fit the benefits off avoiding your bad habits. Inversion of the 3RD law. Make it difficult 3.6. Bad increase friction. Increase the habits. Number off steps between you and your 3.7. That use a commitment device. Benefit you. Restrict your future choice. Esto Theon's inversion of the 4th law. Make it unsatisfying. Yotes on download a printable version off this habitual cheat at atomichabits.com/cheat sheet. The 4th law. Make it satisfying. 15. The cardinal rule of behavior. Change. In the late 1990s, a public health worker named Stephen Luby left his hometown of Omaha, Karachi, Pakistan. Karachi was one of the most populous cities in the world. By 1998, over 9 million people called it home. It was the economic center of Pakistan and a transportation hub, with some of the most active airports and seaports in the region. In the commercial parts of town, you could find all of the standard urban amenities and bustling downtown streets. But Karachi was also one of the least livable cities in the world. Over 60% of Karachi's residents lived in squatter settlements and slums. These densely packed neighborhoods were filled with makeshift houses cobbled together from old boards, cinder blocks, and other discarded materials. There was no waste removal system, no electricity grid, no clean water supply. When dry, the streets were a combination of dust and trash. When wet, they became a muddy pit of sewage. Mosquito colonies thrived in pools of stagnant water, and children played among the garbage. The unsanitary conditions lead to widespread illness and disease. Contaminated water sources caused epidemics of diarrhea, vomiting. Luby and his team realized that in an environment. I see the goal of hand-washing promotion not as behavior change, but as habit adoption, Luby said. It is a lot easier for people to adopt a product that provides a strong positive sensory signal, for example with mint taste of toothpaste, than it is to adopt tasty flavors and the feeling of a fresh mouth. Within a few encounters, he started avoiding her because he found her so uninteresting. Stories like these are evidence of the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. You learn what to do in the future based on what you were rewarded for doing or punished for doing in the past. Positive emotions cultivate habits. Negative emotions destroy them. The first 3 laws of behavior change: make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy, increase the odds that a behavior will be performed this time. The 4th law of behavior change: make it satisfying, increases the odds that a behavior habit loop that will be repeated next time. It completes the but there is a trick. We are not looking for just any type of satisfaction. We are looking for immediate satisfaction. The mismatch between immediate and delayed rewards. Imagine you're an animal roaming the plains of Africa, a giraffe or an elephant or a lion. On any given day, most of your decisions have an immediate impact. You are always thinking about what to eat or where to sleep or how to avoid a predator. You are constantly focused on the present or the very near future. You live in what scientists call an immediate return environment because your actions instantly deliver clear and immediate outcomes. Now switch back to your human self. In modern society, many of the choices you make today will not benefit you immediately. If you do a good job at work, you'll get a paycheck in a few weeks. If you exercise today, perhaps you won't be overweight next year. If you save money now, maybe you'll have enough for retirement decades from now. You live in what scientists call a delayed return environment because you can work for years before your actions deliver the intended payoff. The human brain did not evolve for life in a delayed return environment. The earliest remains of modern humans, known as Homo sapiens sapiens, are approximately 200,000 years old. These were the first humans to have a brain relatively. Can result in sexually transmitted disease? Once you understand how the brain prioritizes rewards, the answers become clear. The consequences of bad habits are delayed while the rewards are immediate. Smoking might kill you in 10 years, but it reduces stress and eases your nicotine cravings now. Overeating is harmful in the long run but appetizing in the moment. Sex, safe or not, provides pleasure right away. Disease and infection won't show up for days or weeks, even years. Every habit produces multiple outcomes across time. Habits. The immediate outcome usually feels good, but the ultimate outcome feels bad. With good habits, it is the reverse. The immediate outcome is unultimate feels good. The French economist Frédéric Bastiat explained the problem clearly when he wrote, "It almost always happens that when the immediate consequence is favorable, the later consequences are disastrous, and vice versa. Often, the sweeter the first fruit of a habit, the more bitter are its later fruits." Put another way, the costs of your good habits are in the present. The costs of your bad habits are in the future. The brain's tendency to prioritize the present moment means you can't rely on good intentions. When you make a plan to lose weight, write a book, or learn a language, you are actually making plans for your future self. And when you envision what you want your life to be like, it is easy to see the value in taking actions with long-term benefits. We all want better lives for our future selves. However, when the moment of decision arrives, instant gratification usually wins. You are no longer making a choice for future you, who dreams of being fitter or wealthier or happier. You are choosing for present you, who wants to be full, pampered, and entertained. As a general rule, the more immediate pleasure you get from an action, the more strongly you should question whether it aligns with your long-term goals. Asterisk. With a fuller understanding of what causes our brain to repeat some behaviors and avoid others, let's update the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. Our preference for instant gratification reveals an important truth about success. Because of how we are wired, most people will spend all day chasing quick hits of satisfaction. The road less traveled is the road of delayed gratification. If you're willing to wait for the rewards, you'll face less competition and often get a bigger payoff. As the saying goes, the last mile is always the least crowded. This is precisely what research has shown. People who are better at delaying gratification have higher SAT scores, lower levels of substance abuse, lower likelihood of obesity, better responses to stress, and superior social skills. We've all seen this play out in our own lives. If you delay watching television and get your homework done, you'll generally learn more and get better grades. How to turn instant gratification to your advantage. In a perfect world, the reward for a good habit. To stick with habits like no frivolous purchases or no alcohol this month, because nothing happens when you skip happy hour drinks or don't buy that pair of shoes. It can be hard to feel satisfied when there is no action in the first place. All you're doing is resisting temptation, and there isn't much satisfying about that. One solution is to turn the situation on its head. You want to make avoidance visible. Open a savings account and label it for something you want. Maybe leather jacket. Whenever you pass on a purchase, put the same amount of money in the account. Skip your morning latte? Transfer $5. Pass on another month of Netflix? Move $10 over. It's like creating a loyalty program for yourself. The immediate reward of seeing yourself save money toward the leather jacket feels a lot better than being deprived. You are making it satisfying to do nothing. One of my readers and his wife used a similar setup. They wanted to stop eating out so much and start cooking together more. They labeled their savings account Trip to Europe. Whenever they skipped going out to eat, they transferred $50 into the account. At the end of the year, they put the money toward the vacation. It is worth noting that it is important to select short-term rewards that reinforce your identity rather than ones that conflict with it. Buying a new jacket is fine if you're trying to lose weight or read more books, but it doesn't work if you're trying to budget and save money. Instead, taking a bubble bath or going on a leisurely walk are good examples of rewarding yourself with free time, which aligns with your ultimate goal of more freedom and financial independence. Similarly, if your reward for exercising is eating a bowl of ice cream, then you're casting votes for conflicting identities, and it ends up being a wash. Instead, maybe your reward is a massage, which is both a luxury and a vote toward taking care of your body. Now the short-term reward is aligned with your long-term vision of being a healthy person. Eventually, as intrinsic rewards like a better mood, more energy, and reduced stress kick in, you'll become less concerned with chasing the secondary reward. The identity itself becomes the reinforcer. You do it because it's who you are and it feels good to be you. The more a habit becomes part of your life, the less you need outside encouragement to follow through. Incentives can start a habit. Identity sustains a habit. That said, it takes time for the evidence to accumulate and a new identity to emerge. Immediate reinforcement helps maintain motivation in the short term while you're waiting for the long-term rewards to arrive. In summary, a habit needs to be enjoyable for it to last. Simple bits of reinforcement, like soap that smells great or toothpaste that has a refreshing mint flavor, or seeing $50 hit your savings account, can offer the immediate pleasure you need to end when it is enjoyable. Chapter Summary. The fourth law of behavior change is make it satisfying. We are more likely to repeat a behavior when the experience is satisfying. The human brain evolved to prioritize immediate rewards over delayed rewards. The cardinal rule of behavior change: what is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. To get a habit to stick, you need to feel immediately successful, even if it's in a small way. The first three laws of behavior change: make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy, increase the odds that a behavior will be performed this time. The fourth law of behavior change: make it satisfying, increases the odds that a behavior will be repeated next time. 16. How to stick with good habits every day. In 1993, a bank in Abbotsford, Canada, hired a 23-year-old stockbroker named Trent Dursmid. Abbotsford was a relatively small suburb, tucked away in the shadow of nearby Vancouver, where most of the big business deals were being made. Given the location, and the fact that Dursmid was a rookie, nobody expected too much of him. But he made brisk progress thanks to a simple daily habit. Dursmid began each morning with 2 jars on his desk. One was filled with 120 paper clips. The other was empty. As soon as he settled in each day, he would make a sales call. Immediately after, he would move one paper clip from the full jar to the empty jar, and the process would begin again. Every morning I would start with 120 paper clips in one jar, and I would keep dialing the phone until I had moved them all to the second jar, he told me. Within 18 months, Dursmid was bringing in $5 million to the firm. By age 24, he was making $75,000 per year, the equivalent of $125,000 today. Not long after, he landed a six-figure job with another company. I like to refer to this tech strategy, and, over the years, I've heard from readers who have employed it in a variety of ways. One woman shifted a hairpin from one container to another whenever she wrote a page of her book. Another man moved a marble from one bin to the next after each set of push-ups. Making progress is satisfying, and visual measures, like moving paper clips or hairpins or marbles, provide clear evidence of your progress. As a result, they reinforce your behavior and add a little bit of immediate satisfaction to any activity. Visual measurement comes in many forms: food journals, workout logs, loyalty punch cards, the progress bar on a software download, even the page numbers in a book. But perhaps the best way to measure your progress is with a habit tracker. How to keep your habits on track. Kept a daily food log lost twice as much weight as those who did not. The mere act of tracking a behavior can spark the urge to change it. Habit tracking also keeps you honest. Most of us have a distorted view of our own behavior. We think we act better than we do. Measurement offers one way to overcome our blindness to our own behavior and notice what's really going on each day. One glance at the paper clips in the container and you immediately know how much work you have, or haven't, been putting in. When the evidence is right in front of yourself, you will list benefit number 2. Habit tracking is attractive. The most effective form of motivation is progress. When we get a signal that we are moving forward, we become more motivated to continue down that path. In this way, habit tracking can have an addictive effect on motivation. Each small win feeds your desire. This can be particularly powerful on a bad day. When you're feeling down, it's easy to forget about all the progress you have already made. Habit tracking provides visual proof of your hard work, a subtle reminder of how far you've come. Plus, the empty square you see each morning can motivate you to get started because you don't want to lose your progress by breaking the streak. Benefit number 3. Habit tracking is satisfying. This is the most crucial benefit of all. Tracking can become its own form of reward. It is satisfying to cross an item off your to-do list, to complete an entry in your workout log, or to mark an X on the calendar. It feels good to watch your results grow, the size of your investment portfolio, the length of your book manuscript, and if it feels good, then you're more likely to endure. Habit tracking also helps keep your eye on the ball. You're focused on the process rather than the result. You're not fixated on getting six-pack abs. You're just trying to keep the streak alive and become the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. In summary, habit tracking 1. Creates a visual cue, can remind you to act. 2. Is inherently motivating that because you see the progress you are making and want to lose it. And 3. Feels satisfying whenever you record another successful instance of your habit. Furthermore, habit tracking provides visual proof that you casting votes for the type of person you wish to become, which is a delightful form of immediate and intrinsic gratification. You may be wondering, if habit tracking is so useful, why have I waited so long to talk about it? Despite all the benefits, I've left this discussion until now for a simple reason. Many people resist the idea of tracking and measuring. It can feel like a burden because it forces you into two habits: the habit you're trying to build and the habit of tracking it. Counting calories. A decision journal, but I wish I used it more. Or, I recorded my workouts for a week, but then quit. I've been there myself. I once made a food log to track me calories. I managed to do it, then gave up. For one meal and tracking isn't for everyone, and there is no need to. Second, manual tracking should be limited to your most important habits. It is better habit than to sporadically track. Consistently track one. Finally, record each measurement immediately after the habit occurs. The completion of the behavior is the Quado. Write it down. This approach allows you to combine the habit stacking method 5 with habit tracking. Mentioned in chapter. After I put my down what I ate. Plate in the dishwasher, I will write these tactics can make tracking your habits easier. Even if you aren't the type of person who enjoys recording your behavior, I think you'll find a few weeks off measurements to be insightful. It's always interesting too. How to recover quickly when why? No matter how consistent you are with your habits, it is inevitable that life will interrupt you at some point. Perfection is not possible. Before long, an emergency will pop up. You get sick, or you have to travel for work, or your family needs a little more of your time. Whenever this happens to me, I try to remind myself of a simple rule: never miss twice. If I miss one day, I try to get back into it as quickly as possible. Missing one workout happens, but I'm not going to miss 2 in a row. Maybe I'll eat an entire pizza, but I'll follow it up with a healthy meal. I can't be perfect, but I can avoid a second lapse. As soon as one streak ends, I get started on the next one. The first mistake is never the one that ruins you. It is the spiral of repeated mistakes that follows. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. This is a distinguishing feature between winners and losers. Anyone can have a bad performance, a bad workout, or a bad day at work. But when successful people fail, they rebound quickly. The breaking of a habit doesn't matter if the reclaiming of it is fast. I think this principle is so important that I'll stick to it even if I can't do a habit as well or as completely as I would like. Too often, we fall into an all-or-nothing cycle with our habits. The problem is not slipping up. The problem is thinking that if you can't do something perfectly, then you shouldn't do it at all. You don't realize how valuable it is to just show up on your bad or busy days. Lost days hurt you more than successful days help you. If you start with $100, then a 50% gain will take you to $150. But you only need a 33% loss to take you back to $100. In other words, avoiding a 33% loss is just as valuable as achieving a 50% gain. As Charlie Munger says, the first rule of compounding: never interrupt it unnecessarily. This is why the bad workouts are often the most important ones. Sluggish days and bad workouts maintain the compound gains you accrued from previous good days. Simply doing something: 10 squats, 5 sprints, a push-up. Anything really is huge. Don't put up a 0. Don't let losses eat into your compounding. Furthermore, it's not always about what happens during the workout. It's about being the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. It's easy to train when you feel good, but it's crucial to show up when you don't feel like it, even if you do less than you hope. Going to the gym for 5 minutes may not improve your performance, but it reaffirms your identity. The all-or-nothing cycle of behavior change is just one pitfall that can derail your habits. Another potential danger, especially if you are using a habit tracker, is measuring the wrong thing. Knowing when and when not to track Say you're running a restaurant and you want to know if your chef is doing a good job. One way to measure success is to track how many customers pay for a meal each day. If more customers come in, the food must be good. If fewer customers come in, something must be wrong. However, this one measurement, daily revenue, only gives a limited picture of what's really going on. Just because someone pays for a meal doesn't mean they enjoy the meal. Even dissatisfied customers are unlikely to dine and dash. In fact, if you're only measuring revenue, the food might be getting worse, but you're making up for it with marketing or discounts or some other method. Instead, it may be more effective to track how many customers finish their meal, or perhaps the percentage of customers who leave a generous tip. The dark side of tracking a particular behavior is that we become driven by the number rather than the purpose behind it. If your success is measured by quarterly earnings, you will optimize sales, revenue, and accounting for quarterly earnings. If your success is measured by a lower number on the scale, you will optimize for a lower number on the scale, even if that means embracing crash diets, juice cleanses, and fat loss pills. The human mind wants to win, whatever game is being played. This pitfall is evident in many areas of life. We focus on working long hours instead of getting meaningful work done. We care more about getting 10,000 steps than we do about being healthy. We teach for standardized tests instead of emphasizing learning, curiosity, and critical thinking. In short, we optimize for what we measure. When what just behavior the wrong measurement, we get the wrong. This is sometimes referred to as Goodhart's Law. Named after the economist Charles Goodhart, the principle states, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Measurement is only useful when it guides you and adds context to a larger picture, not when it consumes you. Each number is simply one piece of feedback in the overall system. In our data-driven world, we tend to overvalue numbers and undervalue anything ephemeral, soft, and difficult to quantify. We mistakenly think the factors we can measure are the only factors that exist. But just because you can measure something doesn't mean it's the most important thing. And just because you can't measure something doesn't mean it's not important at all. All of this to say, it's crucial to keep habit tracking in its proper place. It can feel satisfying to record a habit and track your progress, but the measurement is not the only thing that matters. Furthermore, there are many ways to measure progress, and sometimes it helps to shift your focus to something entirely different. This is why non-scale victories can be effective for weight loss. The number on the scale may be stubborn, so if you focus solely on that number, your motivation will sag. But you may notice that your skin looks better, or you wake up earlier, or your sex drive got a boost. All of these are valid ways to track your improvement. If you're not feeling motivated by the number on the scale, perhaps it's time to focus on a different measurement, one that gives you more signals of progress. No matter how you measure your improvement, habit tracking offers a simple way to make your habits more satisfying. Each measurement provides a little bit of evidence that you're moving in the right direction in a brief moment of immediate chapter summary pleasure for a job well done. Don't break the chain. Try to keep your habit streak alive. Never miss twice. If you miss on 80, try to get back into possible. Just because you can measure something doesn't mean it's the most important thing. 17. How an accountability partner can change everything. After serving as a pilot in World War II, Roger Fisher attended Harvard Law School and spent 34 years specializing in negotiation and conflict management. He founded the Harvard Negotiation Project and worked with numerous countries and world leaders on peace resolutions, hostage crises, and diplomatic compromises. But it was in the 1970s and 1980s, as the threat of nuclear war escalated, that Fisher developed perhaps his most interesting idea. At the time, Fisher was focused on designing strategies that could prevent nuclear war, and he had noticed a troubling fact. Any sitting president would have access to launch codes that could kill millions of people, but we'd never actually see anyone die because be thousands of miles away. He would always, my suggestion was quite simple, he wrote in 1981. Put that nuclear code number in a little capsule, and then implant that capsule right next to the heart of a volunteer. The volunteer would carry with him a big, heavy butcher knife as he accompanied the president. If ever the president wanted to fire nuclear weapons, the only way he could do so would be for him first, with his own hands, to kill one human being. The president says, "George, I'm sorry, but tens of millions must die." He has to look at someone and realize what death is, what an innocent death is. Blood on the White House carpet. It's reality brought home. When I suggested this to friends at the Pentagon, they said, "My God, that's terrible. Having to kill someone would distort the president's judgment. He might never push the button." Throughout our discussion of the fourth law of behavior change, we have covered the importance of making good habits immediately satisfying. Fisher's proposal is an inversion of the fourth law: make it immediately unsatisfying. Just as we are more likely to repeat an experience when the ending is satisfying, we are also more likely to avoid an experience when the ending is painful. Pain isn't effective teacher. If a failure is painful, it gets fixed. If a failure is relatively painless, it gets ignored. The more immediate and more costly a mistake is, the faster you will learn from it. The threat of a bad review forces a plumber to be good at his job. The possibility of a customer never returning makes restaurants create good food. The cost of cutting the wrong blood vessel makes a surgeon master human anatomy and cut carefully. When the consequences are severe, people learn quickly. The more immediate the pain, the less likely the behavior. If you want to prevent bad habits and eliminate unhealthy behaviors, then adding an instant cost to the action is a great way to reduce their odds. We repeat bad habits because they serve us in some way, and that makes them hard to abandon. The best way I know to overcome this predicament is to increase the speed of the punishment associated with the behavior. There can't be a gap between the action and the consequences. As soon as actions incur an immediate consequence, behavior begins to change. Customers pay their bills on time when they are charged a late fee. Students show up to class when their grade is linked to attendance. We'll jump through a lot pained out of hoops to avoid a little bit of immediate. There is, of course, a limit to this. If you're going totally on punishment to change behavior, then the strength of the punishment must match the relative strength of the behavior it is trying to correct. To be greater in the cost of exercise. Getting fined for smoking in a restaurant or failing to recycle adds consequence to an action. Behavior only shifts if the punishment is painful enough and reliably enforced. In general, The more local, tangible, concrete, and immediate. The habit contract. In 49 of the 50 states, and it's not just smoking inside restaurants, mandatory recycling, Edison. Example of a social contract shaping our habits. The group agrees to act in a certain way, and if follow along, you'll be punished, just as governments use laws to hold citizens you don't accountable. You can create a habit contract to hold yourself accountable. A habit contract is a verbal or written agreement in which you state your commitment to. In Q2, phase number 3, refine and maintain his diet and workout program in Q3. Finally, he wrote out each of the daily habits that details well to get him to his goal. For example, write down all food that he consumes each day and weigh himself day each. Phase number 1, get back to a strict, slow-carb diet in Q1. Phase number 2, start a strict macronutrient tracking program. And then he listed the punishment I failed. If Brian doesn't do these 2 items, then the following sequence will be enforced. He will have to dress up each workday and each Sunday morning for the rest of the quarter. Dress up is defined as not wearing jeans, t-shirts, hoodies, or shorts. He will also give Joey, his trainer, $200 to use as he sees fit one day of logging food. If he misses at the bottom of the page, Harris, trainer, all signed the contract. His wife. And my initial reaction was that a contract like this seemed overly formal and unnecessary, especially the signatures. But Harris convinced me that signing the contract was an indication of seriousness. Anytime I skip this part, he starts slacking almost immediately. Said, 3 months later, after hitting his target for Q1, Harris upgraded his goals. The consequences escalated, too. I've missed his carbohydrate and protein targets. He had to pay his trainer $100. And if he failed to lie himself, he had to give his wife $500 to use as she saw fit. Perhaps most painfully, if he forgot to run sprints, he had to dress up for work every day and wear an Alabama hat the rest of the quarter, the bitter rival of his beloved Auburn team. An immediate cost. If you don't follow through, perhaps they'll see you as untrustworthy or lazy. Suddenly, you are not only failing to uphold your promises to yourself, but also failing to uphold your promises to others. You can even automate this process. Thomas Frank, an entrepreneur in Boulder, Colorado, wakes up at 5:55 each morning, and if he doesn't, he has a tweet automatically scheduled that says, "It's 6:10 and I'm not up because I'm lazy. Reply to this for $5 via PayPal, limit 5, assuming my alarm didn't malfunction." We are always trying to present our best selves to the world. We comb our hair and brush our teeth and dress ourselves carefully because we know these habits are likely to get a positive reaction. We want to get good grades and graduate from top schools to impress potential employers and mates and our friends and family. We care about the opinions of those around us because it helps if others like us. This is precisely why getting an accountability partner or signing a habit contract can work so well. The inversion of the 4th law of behavior change is make it unsatisfying. We are less likely to repeat a bad habit if it is painful or unsatisfying. An accountability partner can create an immediate cost to inaction. We care deeply about what others think of us, and we do not want others to have a lesser opinion of us. Promise is public and painful. Knowing that someone else is powerful motivator that watching you can be how to create a good the 1SD law. Make it obvious. A habit contract can be used to add a social cost to any behavior. It makes the costs of violating your 1.1 become 1.2, 1.3. Fill aware use out the habits of them. Implementation intentions, habit stacking, after scorecard. Current write down will, behavior, habit, your current at time, will new habits and habit. 2 location, 1.4, visible, design your environment. Make the cues of good habits obvious and the 2nd law. Make it attractive 2.1 and 2.2. Use action join temptation bundling. Pair you need to a culture where and do. Your action you desired behavior want to is the do normal with behavior. 2.3, difficult create habit. A motivation ritual. Do something you enjoy immediately before the third law. Make it easy. 3.1. Good. 3.2. Reduce habits. Prime friction. Decrease the environment. Prepare number your of steps environment to between you and make future actions your easier. 3.3. Impact. Master the decisive moment. Optimize the small choices that deliver outsized. 3.4. Done use in the 2-minute rule. 2 minutes or downscale less. Your habits until they can be. 3.5. And automate future your habits. Invest behavior in technology and one-time purchases that lock the fourth law. Make it satisfying. 4.1. Your use habit. Reinforcement. Give yourself an immediate reward when you complete. 4.2. Way make to doing nothing enjoyable. See the benefits. When avoiding a bad habit, design a. 4.3. Don't use break a habit tracker. The chain. Keep track of your habit streak. And 4.4. Sure never you miss twice. When get back on your track, forget to immediately do a habit. Make. How to break a bad habit. Inversion of the 1SD law. Make it invisible. 1.5. Reduce exposure. Remove the cues environment. Fewer bad habits from your inversion of the 2ND law. Make it unattractive. 2.4. Reframe your mindset. How fit the benefits off avoiding your bad habits. Inversion of the 3RD law. Make it difficult. 3.6. Bad increase friction. Increase the habits. Number off steps between you and your. 3.7. That use a commitment device. Benefit you. Restrict your future choice. Esto Theon's inversion of the 4TH law. Make it unsatisfying. 4.5. Get an accountability partner. Ask Somianito watch your behavior. 4.6. Public create a habit contract. And painful. Mekethikos fewer bad habits. Yotson download a printable version off this habituchia cheat at atomichabits.com/cheat sheet. Advanced tactics. How to go from being merely good to 18. The truth about talent, when genes matter and when they don't. Many people are familiar with Michael Phelps, who is widely considered to be one of the greatest athletes in history. Phelps has won more Olympic medals not only than any sport swimmer, but also more than any Olympian, and any fewer people know the name Hisham El Guru. Both was a fantastic athlete in his own right. El Gourouji is a Moroccan runner who holds 2 Olympic gold medals and is one of the greatest middle distance runners of all time. For many years, he held the world record in the mile, 1,500 meter, and 2,000 meter races. At the Olympic Games in Athens, Greece, in 2004, he won gold in the 1,500 meter and 5,000 meter races. These two athletes are wildly different in many ways. For starters, one competed on land and the other in water. But most notably, they differ significantly in height. El Guru is 5 feet, 9 inches tall. Phelps is 6 feet, 4 inches tall. Despite the 7-inch difference in height, the two men are identical in one respect. Michael Phelps and Hisham El Guru were the same length in seam in their pants. How is this possible? Phelps has relatively short legs. For his height and a very long torso, the perfect build. Disadvantage before he ever touched the pool. Want to dunk a basketball? Being 7 feet tall is very useful. If you want to perform a gymnastics routine, being 7 feet tall is a great hindrance. Our environment determines the suitability of our genes and the utility of our natural talents. When our environment changes, so do the qualities that determine success. This is true not just for physical characteristics, but for mental ones as well. I'm smart if you ask me about habits and human behavior, not so much when it comes to knitting, rocket propulsion, or guitar chords. Competence is highly dependent on context. The people at the top of any competitive field are not only well trained, they are also well suited to the task. And this is why, if you want to be truly great, selecting the right place to focus is crucial. In short, genes do not determine your destiny. They determine your areas of opportunity. As physician Gabor Mate notes, genes can predispose, but they don't predetermine. The areas where you are genetically predisposed to success are the areas where habits are more likely to be satisfying. The key is to direct your effort toward areas that both excite you and match your ability skills to align your ambition with the obvious. How do I figure out where the odds are in my favor? How do I identify the opportunities and habits that are right for me? The first place we will look for in your personality answer is by understanding how your personality influences your habits. Your genes are operating beneath the surface of every habit. Indeed, beneath the surface of every behavior. Genes have been shown to influence everything from the number of hours you spend watching television to your likelihood to marry or divorce to your tendency to get addicted to drugs, alcohol, or nicotine. There's a strong genetic component to how obedient or rebellious you are when facing authority, how vulnerable or resistant you are to stressful events, how proactive or reactive you tend to be, and even how captivated or bored you feel during sensory experiences like attending a concert. As Robert Plowman, a behavioral geneticist at King's College in London, told me, it is now at the point where we have stopped testing to see if traits have a genetic component because we literally can't find a single one that isn't influenced by our genes. 1. Openness to experience. From curious and inventive on one end to cautious and consistent on the other. 2. Conscientiousness. Organized and efficient to easygoing and spontaneous. 3. Extroversion. Outgoing and energetic to solitary and reserved. You likely know them as extroverts versus introverts. 4. Agreeableness. Friendly and compassionate to challenging and detached. 5. Neuroticism. Anxious and sensitive to confident, calm, and stable. All 5 characteristics have biological underpinnings. Our habits are not solely determined by our personalities, but there is no doubt that our genes nudge us in a certain direction. Our deeply rooted preferences make certain behaviors easier for some people than for others. You don't have to apologize for these differences or feel guilty about them, but you don't have to work with them. Scores lower on conscientiousness, for example, will be less likely to be orderly by nature and may need totally more Havilian environment design to stick with good habits. As a reminder for the less conscientious readers among us, environment design is a strategy we discussed in chapters 6 and 12. The takeaway is that you should build habits that work for your personality. People can get ripped working out like a bodybuilder, but if you prefer rock climbing or cycling or rowing, then shape your exercise habit around your interests. If your friend follows a low-carb diet, but you find that low-fat works for you, then more power to you. If you want to read more, don't be embarrassed if you prefer steamy romance novels over nonfiction. Read whatever fascinates you. You don't have to build the habits everyone tells you to build. Choose the habit that best suits you, not the one that is most popular. There is a version of every habit that can bring you joy and satisfaction. Find it. Habits need to be enjoyable if they're going to stick. This is the core idea behind the 4th law. Tailoring your habits to your personality is a good start, but this is not the end of the story. Let's turn our attention to finding and designing situations where you're at a natural advantage. How to find a game where the odds are in your favor. Learning to play a game where the odds are in your favor is critical for maintaining motivation and feeling successful. In theory, you can enjoy almost anything. In practice, you are more likely to enjoy the things that come easily to you. People who are talented in a particular area tend to be more competent at that task and are then praised for doing a good job. They stay energized because they are making progress where others have failed, and because they get rewarded with better pay and bigger opportunities, which not only makes them happier, but also propels them to produce even higher quality work. It's a virtuous cycle. Pick the right habit and progress is easy. Pick the wrong habit and life is a struggle. How do you pick the right habit? The first step is something we covered in the third law. Make it easy. In many cases, when people pick the wrong habit, it simply means they picked a habit that was too difficult. When a habit is easy, you are more likely to be successful. When you are successful, you are more likely to feel satisfied. However, there is another level to consider. In the long run, if you continue to advance and improve any sense to explore, because once you find the right thing, you still have a good amount of time to exploit it. If you're pressed for time, say, as you come up on the deadline for a project, you should implement the best solution you've found so far and get some results. As you explore different options, there are a series of questions you can ask yourself to continually narrow in on the habits and areas that will be most satisfying to you. What feels like fun to me, but work to others? The mark of whether you are made for a task is not whether you love it, but whether you can handle the pain of the task easier than most people. When are you enjoying yourself while other people are complaining? The work that hurts you less than it hurts others is the work you were made to do. What makes me lose track of time? Flow is the mental state you enter when you are so focused on the task at hand that the rest of the world fades away. This blend of happiness and peak performance is what athletes and performers experience when they are in the zone. It is nearly impossible to experience a flow state and not find the task satisfying at least to some degree. Where do I get greater returns than the average person? We are continually comparing ourselves to those around us, and a behavior is more likely to be satisfying when the comparison is in our favor. When I started writing at jamesclear.com, my email list grew very quickly. I wasn't quite sure what I was doing well, but I knew that results seemed to be coming faster for me than for some of jamesclear.com. What comes naturally to me? For just a moment, ignore what you have been taught. Ignore what society has told you. Ignore what others expect of you. Look inside yourself and ask, what feels natural to me? When have I felt alive? When have I felt like the real me? No internal judgments or... But what if you don't want to leave it up to luck? People can draw well and write jokes. It's the combination of the two that makes what I do so rare. And when you add in me business background, suddenly I had a topic that few cartoonists could hope to understand without living it. When you can't win by being better, you can win by being different. By combining your skills, you reduce the level of competition, which makes it easier to stand out. You can shortcut the need for a genetic advantage, or for works hard to win the game everyone else is playing. A great player creates a new game that favors their strengths and avoids their weaknesses. In college, I designed my own major, biomechanics, which was a combination of physics, chemistry, biology, and anatomy. I wasn't smart enough to stand out among the top physics or biology majors, so I created my trap of comparing myself to everyone else. After all, nobody else was taking the same combination of classes, so who could say if they were better or worse? Specialization is a powerful way to overcome the accident of bad genetics. The more you master a specific skill, the harder it becomes for others to compete with you. Many bodybuilders are stronger than the average arm wrestler, but even a massive bodybuilder may lose at arm wrestling because the arm wrestling champ has very specific strength. Even if you're not the most naturally gifted, you can often win by being the best in a very narrow category. Boiling water will soften a potato but harden an egg. You can't control whether you're a potato or an egg, but you can decide to play a game where it's better to be hard or soft. If you can find a more favorable environment, you can transform the situation from one where the odds are against you to one where they are in your favor. How to get the most out of your genes? Our genes do not eliminate the need for hard work. They clarify it. They tell us what to work hard on. Once we realize our strengths, we know where to spend our time and energy. We know which types of opportunities to look for and which types of challenges to avoid. The better we understand our nature, the better our strategy can be. Biological differences matter. Even so, it's more productive to focus on whether you are fulfilling your own potential than comparing yourself to someone else. The fact that you have a natural limit to any specific ability has nothing to do with whether you are reaching the ceiling of your capabilities. People get so caught up in the fact that they have limits that they rarely exert the effort required to get close to them. Furthermore, genes can't make you successful if you're not doing the work. Yes, it's possible that the ripped trainer at the gym has better genes, but if you haven't put in the same reps, it's impossible to say if you have been dealt a better or worse genetic hand. Until you work as hard as those you admire, don't explain away their success as luck. In summary, one of the best ways to ensure your habits remain satisfying over the long run is to pick behaviors that align with your personality and skills. Work hard on the things that come easy. Chapter summary. The secret to maximizing your odds of success is to choose the right field of competition. Pick the right habit, and progress is easy. Pick the wrong habit, and life is a. Genes cannot be easily changed, which means they provide a powerful advantage in favorable circumstances and a serious disadvantage in unfavorable circumstances. Habits are easier when they align with your natural abilities. Choose the habits that best suit you. Play a game that favors your strengths. If you can't find a game that favors you, create one. Genes do not eliminate the need for hard work. They clarify it. They tell us what to work hard on. 19. The Goldilocks Rule: How to Stay Motivated in Life and Work. Within a year, he had transitioned to Disney's Magic Shop, where he learned tricks from the older employees. He experimented with jokes and tried out simple routines on visitors. Soon he discovered that what he loved was not performing magic, but performing in general. He set his sights on becoming a comedian. Beginning in his teenage years, he started performing in little clubs around Los Angeles. The crowds were small, and his act was short. He was rarely on stage for more than 5 minutes. Most of the people in the crowd were too busy drinking or talking with friends to pay attention. One night, he literally delivered his stand-up routine to an empty club. It wasn't glamorous work, but there was no doubt he was getting better. His first routines would only last 1 or 2 minutes. By high school, his material had expanded to include a 5-minute act and a few years later, a 10-minute show. At 19, he was performing weekly for 20 minutes at a time. He had to read 3 poems during a show just to make the routine long enough. But his skills continued to progress that he spent another decade experimenting, adjusting, and practicing. He took a job as a television writer, and gradually, he was able to land his own appearances on talk shows that by the mid-1970s. He had worked his way into being a. His name is Steve Martin. The Goldilocks Rule. Figure 15. Maximum motivation occurs when facing a challenge of just manageable difficulty. In psychology research, this is known as the Yerkes-Dodson law, which anxiety describes the optima. Martin's comedy career is an excellent example of. A flow state is the experience of being in the zone and fully immersed in an activity. Scientists have tried to quantify this feeling. They found that to achieve a state of flow, a task must be roughly 4% beyond your current ability. In real life, it's typically not feasible to quantify the difficulty of an action in this way, but the core idea of the Goldilocks rule remains. Working on challenges of just manageable difficulty, something on the perimeter of your ability, seems crucial for maintaining motivation. Improvement requires a delicate balance. You need to regularly search for challenges that to your edge while continuing to make enough progress to stay motivated. Behaviors need to remain novel in order for them to stay attractive and satisfying. Without variety, we get bored, and boredom is perhaps the greatest villain on self-improvement, the quest for. How to stay focused when you get bored working on your goals. Never-ending cycle, jumping from one workout to the next, one diet to the next, one business idea to soon as we experience the slightest dip in motivation, we begin seeking a new strategy, even if the old one was still working. As Machiavelli noted, men desire novelty to such an extent that those who are doing well wish for a change as much as those who are doing badly. Perhaps this is why many of the most habit-forming variable rewards won't create a craving. That is, you can't take a reward people are uninterested in, give it to them at a variable interval, and hope it will change their mind. But they are a powerful way to amplify the cravings we already experience because they reduce boredom. The sweet spot of desire occurs at a 50-50 split between success and failure. Half of the time you get what you want. Half of the time you don't. You need just enough, winning, to experience satisfaction and just enough, wanting, to experience desire. This is one of the benefits of following the Goldilocks rule. If you're already interested in a habit, working on challenges of just manageable difficulty is a good way to keep things interesting. Of course, not all habits have a variable reward component, and you wouldn't want them to. If Google only delivered a useful search result some of the time, I would switch to a competitor pretty quickly. If Uber only picked up half of my trips, I doubt I'd be using that service much longer. And if I flossed my teeth each night, and only sometimes ended up with a clean mouth, I think I'd skip it. Variable rewards or not, no habit will stay interesting forever. At some point, everyone faces the same challenge on the journey of self-improvement. You have to fall in love with boredom. We all have goals that we would like to achieve and dreams that we would like to fulfill, but it doesn't matter what you are trying to become better at. If you only do the work when it's convenient or exciting, then you'll never be consistent enough to achieve remarkable results. I can guarantee that if you manage to start a habit and keep sticking to it, there will be days when you feel like quitting. When you start a business, there will be days when you don't feel like showing up. When you're at the gym, there will be sets that you don't feel like finishing. When it's time to write, there will be days that you don't feel like typing. But stepping up when it's annoying or painful or draining to do so, that's what makes the difference between a professional and an amateur. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. Professionals know what is important to them and work toward it with purpose. Amateurs get pulled off course by the urgencies of life. David Kane, an author and meditation teacher, encourages his students to avoid being fair-weather meditators. Similarly, you don't want to be a fair-weather athlete or a fair-weather anything. When a habit is truly important to you, you have to be willing to stick to it in any mood. Professionals take action even when the mood isn't right. They might not enjoy it, but they find a way to put the reps in. There have been a lot of sets that I haven't felt like finishing, but I've never regretted doing the workout. There have been a lot of articles I haven't felt like writing, but I've never regretted publishing on schedule. There have been a lot of days I've felt like relaxing, but I've never regretted showing up and working on something that was important to me. The only way to become excellent is to be endlessly fascinated by doing the same thing over and over. You have to fall in love with boredom. Chapter summary. The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. The greatest threat to success is not failure, but boredom. As habits become routine, they become less interesting and less satisfying. We get bored. Anyone can work hard when they feel motivated. It's the ability to keep going when work isn't exciting that makes the difference. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. 20. The downside of creating good habits. Habits create the foundation for mastery. In chess, it is only after the basic movements of the pieces have become automatic that a player can focus on the next level of the game. Each chunk of information that is memorized opens up the mental space for more effortful thinking. This is true for any endeavor. When you know the simple movements so well that you can perform them without thinking, you are free to pay attention to more advanced details. In this way, habits are the backbone of any pursuit of excellence. However, the benefits of habits come at a cost. At first, Each repetition develops fluency, speed, and skill. But then, as a habit becomes automatic, you become less sensitive to feedback. You fall into mindless repetition. It becomes easier to let mistakes slide. When you can do it good enough on autopilot, you stop thinking about how to do it better. The upside of habits is that we can do things without thinking. The downside of habits is that you get used to doing things a certain way and stop paying attention to little errors. You assume you're getting better because you're gaining experience. In reality, you are merely reinforcing your current habits, not improving them. In fact, some research has shown that once a skill has been mastered, there is usually a slight decline in performance over time. Usually, this minor dip in performance is no cause for worry. You don't need a system to continuously improve how well you brush your teeth, or tie your shoes, or make your morning cup of tea. With habits like these, good enough is usually good enough. The less energy you spend on trivial choices, the more you can spend it on what really matters. However, when you want to maximize your potential and achieve elite levels of performance, you need a more nuanced approach. You can't repeat the same things blindly and expect to become exceptional. Habits are necessary, but not sufficient for mastery. What you need is a combination of automatic habits and deliberate practice. Habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery. Mastering one habit. Mastering a field. Figure 16. The process of mastery requires Thadio progressively layer improvements in top of another. Each habit building upon last until a skills new. Has level been off performance has internalized been reached and a higher range off. How to review your habits and make adjustments. After determining a player's baseline level of performance, Riley added a key step. He scaled each player to improve their output by at least 1% over the course of the season. If he succeeded, Riley was careful to point out that CBE was not. As an example, let's say that Magic Johnson, the Lakers' star player at the time, had 11 points, 8 rebounds, 12 assists, 2 steals, and 5 turnovers in a game. Magic also got credit for an unsung hero, D, by diving after a loose ball, +1. Finally, he played a total of 33 minutes in his imaginary game. The positive numbers, 11 plus 8 plus 12 plus 2 plus 1, add up to 34. Then, we subtract the 5 turnovers, 34 to 529. Finally, we divide 29 by 33 minutes. 29/33 equals 0.879. Magic's CBE number here would be 879. This number was calculated for all of a player's games, and it was the average CBE that a player was asked to improve by 1% over the season. Riley compared each player's current CBE to not only their past performances, but also those of other players in the league. As Riley put it, we rank his team to another title as the Lakers became the team in 20 years to win back-to-back NBA championships. Afterward, he said, sustaining an effort is most important thing for any enterprise. The way to be successful is to learn how to do things right, then him. The CBE program is a prime example of the power of reflection and review. The Lakers were already talented. CBE helped them get the most out of what they had, and made sure their habits improved rather than declined. Reflection and review enables the long-term improvement of all habits because it makes you aware of your mistakes and helps you consider possible paths for improvement. Without reflection, we can make excuses, create rationalizations, and lie to ourselves. We have no process for determining whether we are performing better or worse compared to yesterday. Top performers in all fields engage in various types of reflection and review, and the process doesn't have to be complex. Kenyan runner Eliud Kipchoge is one of the greatest marathoners of all time and a medalist. He still takes notes after every practice in which he reviews training for the day and searches for areas that can be improved. Similarly, Gold medal swimmer Katie Ledecky records her wellness on a scale of 1 to 10 and includes notes on her nutrition and how well she slept. She also records the times posted by other swimmers at the end of each week. Her coach goes over her notes and adds his thoughts. It's not just athletes, either. When comedian Chris Rock is preparing fresh material, he will first appear at small nightclubs dozens of times and test hundreds of jokes. He brings a notepad on stage and records which bits go over well and where he needs to make adjustments. The few killer lines that survive will form the backbone of his new show. I know of executives and investors who keep a decision journal in which they record the major decisions they make each week, why they made them, and what they expect the outcome to be. They review their choices at the end of each month or year to see where they were correct and where they went wrong. Asterisk. Improvement is not just about learning habits, it's also about fine-tuning them. Reflection and review ensures that you spend your time on the right things and make course corrections whenever necessary, like Pat Riley adjusting the effort of his players on a nightly basis. You don't want to practicing a habit if it becomes ineffective. Keep personally. I employ two primary mottos of reflection and review. Each December, I perform an annual review, in which I reflect on the previous year. I tally my habits for the year by counting up how many articles I published, how many workouts I put in, how many new places I visited, and more. Asterisk. Then, I reflect on my progress, or lack thereof, by 3 questions. Answering 1. What went well this year? 2. What didn't go so well this year? 3. What did I learn? 6 months later, when summer rolls around, I conduct an integrity report. Like everyone, I make a lot of mistakes. My integrity report helps me realize where I went wrong and motivates me to get back on course. That I use each as a time to revisit my core values. And my yearly integrity report answers 3 questions. 1. What are the core values that drive my life and work? 2. How am I living and working with integrity right now? 3. How can I set a higher standard in the future? Reflection can also bring a sense of perspective. Daily habits are powerful because of how they compound, but worrying too much about every daily choice is like looking at yourself in the mirror from an inch away. You can see every imperfection and lose sight of the bigger picture. There is too much feedback. Conversely, never reviewing your habits is like never looking in the mirror. You aren't aware of easily fixable flaws. Aspect on your shirt, a bit of food in your teeth. There is too little feedback. Periodic reflection and review is like viewing yourself in the mirror from a conversational distance. You can see the important changes you should make without losing sight. How to break the beliefs that hold you back. The surgeon who dismisses the ideas of her younger colleagues. The band who produces a mind-blowing first album and then gets stuck in a rut. The tighter we cling to an identity, the harder it becomes to grow beyond it. Point 1 solution is to avoid making any single aspect. Military veterans and former entrepreneurs report similar feelings. If your identity is wrapped up in a belief like, I'm a great soldier, what happens when your period of service ends? For many business owners, their identity is something along the lines of, I'm the CEO, or I'm the founder. If you have spent every waking moment working on your business, how will the company you feel after use? The key to mitigating these losses of identity is to define yourself such that you get to keep important aspects of your identity even if changes your particular role. I'm the CEO translates to, I'm the type of person who builds and creates things. When chosen effectively, an identity can be flexible or and brittle. Like water flowing around an obstacle, your identity works with the changing circumstances rather than against them. Thus whoever is stiff. Disciple of life. Lao Tzu. You need to periodically check in to see if your old habits and beliefs are still serving you. A lack of self-awareness is poison. Reflection and review is the antidote. Chapter summary. The upside of habits is that we can do things without thinking. The downside is that we stop paying attention to little errors. Habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery. Reflection and review is a process that allows Yodo remain conscious of your performance over Thader Weckling to an identity. The harder it becomes to grow beyond it. Conclusion. The secret to results that last. T. Sorite's paradox. Asterisk, which talks about the effect one small action can have when repeated enough times. One formulation of the paradox goes as follows. Can one coin make a person rich? If you give a person a pile of 10 coins, you wouldn't claim that he or she is rich. But what if you add another, and another, and another? At some point, you will have to admit that no one can be rich unless one coin can make him or her so. We can say the same about atomic habits. Can one tiny change transform your life? It's unlikely you would say so. But what if you made another, and another, and another? At some point, you will have to admit that your life was transformed by one small change. The holy grail of habit change is not a single 1% improvement, but 1,000 of them. It's a bunch of atomic habits stacking up, each one a fundamental unit of the overall system. In the beginning, small improvements can often seem meaningless because they get washed away by the weight of the system. Just as one coin won't make you rich, one positive change like meditating for 1 minute or reading 1 page each day is unlikely to deliver a noticeable difference. Gradually, though, as you continue to layer small changes on top of one another, the scales of life start to move. Each improvement is like adding a grain of sand to the positive side of the scale, slowly tilting things in your favor. Eventually, if you stick with it, you hit a tipping point. Suddenly, it feels easier to stick with good habits. The weight of the system is working for you rather than against you. Over the course of this book, we've looked at dozens of stories about top performers. We've heard about Olympic gold medalists, award-winning artists, business leaders, life-saving physicians, and star comedians who have all used the science of small habits to master their craft and vault to the top of their field. Each of the people, teams, and companies we have covered has faced different set of tools and strategies that you can use to build better systems and shape better habits. Sometimes a habit will be hard to remember and you'll need to make it obvious. Other times you won't feel like starting and you'll need to make it attractive. In many cases, you may find theta habit will be too difficult and you'll need to make it easy. And sometimes, you won't feel to make it satisfying like sticking with it and you'll need behaviors are effortless obvious here. Behaviors are difficult and visible here, not attractive, unattractive, easy, hard, satisfying, unsatisfying. You want to push your good habits toward the left side of the spectrum by making them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. Meanwhile, you want to cluster your invisible, unattractive, hard, and bad habits toward unsatisfying at the right side by making them. That's the power of atomic habits. Tiny changes. Remarkable results.